Chapter 323. Today's first update. Thank you brothers and sisters for your consolation and encouragement. Thank you. Just this point of losing is not a bad thing had already made June Moxie have a good impression of him. Therefore, he didn't take it too far. He smiled and said, "When did Senior and I ever talk about competing? Where did the talk of winning and losing come from? The reason is that I was too arrogant and didn't answer Senior's question. Moreover, I spoke rudely. If I say no, then it's my fault." "Humph. Kid, you're the winner. You don't have to flatter me. A win is a win, a loss is a loss. What's there to hide?" Dongfang Wendao was seething with anger as he said, "Since you've been defeated, you have the qualifications to speak to me. My previous careless question was indeed this old man's mistake. This old man apologizes." He snorted and said, "But I'll still look for you. At that time, you and I will have a good competition." "Ha! Since that's the case, I'll be waiting for you. However, with Senior's extraordinary skills, you're at least 20 to 30 times more powerful than me. If we were to talk about our true strength, I'm afraid I'd be killed by Senior in the blink of an eye." June Moxie had the intention to befriend him. Therefore, he spoke modestly. "That's true." Dongfang Wendao snorted and said arrogantly, "Kid, at least you're sensible. If I were to really fight you to the death. Humph. I don't even need to ask to know the consequences. Sigh, that might not be the case. Your movements are too fast. You're actually faster than me. No, we can't even be mentioned in the same breath. Motherfucker." At the end of his speech, Dongfang Wendao couldn't help but become dispirited. He also knew that with his opponent's speed, unless he shamelessly used Xin Xian's cultivation to deal with Yu Xian and launched a sneak attack, he wouldn't be able to kill his opponent in one strike. Although he was very good at sneak attacks and assassinations, it was really inexcusable for a master like Xin Xian to use a sneak attack to deal with a little brat like Yu Xian. He still wanted to save his face, but once this brat was prepared, he would not be able to kill him no matter what. He couldn't even catch up to them, so what was the point of killing them? Even if it was an indiscriminate attack, there would always be loopholes. Although they had previously agreed that no one would be able to dodge those powerful moves, Dongfang Wendao no longer had that confidence after witnessing this brat's terrifying speed. At the very least, he wasn't that confident anymore. Others might not be able to dodge it, but this brat, it was hard to say. June Moxie chuckled. He felt that this strange man in front of him had a straightforward and adorable temperament. Dongfang Wenqing took a step forward and cupped his hands. His attitude was very amiable as he said, "Little brother, how should I address you? Who is your teacher?" That exquisite lightness Kung Fu just now is really enough to shock the world. When he asked this question, even Dongfang Wenjian and Dongfang Wendao looked at him. Obviously, these two people were also very interested in this question. In their hearts, as long as they knew this kid's name, origin, and background, all their doubts would be solved in an instant. Although the three of them hadn't been in the martial world for many years, they still knew a lot about some of the hidden forces in the world. Even though they couldn't be said to be very familiar with them, they were close. However, the three of them had already rummaged through their memories. They almost had a headache thinking about it, but they still couldn't think of any place or person that could cultivate such a demonic disciple. With such outstanding strength at such a young age, how could an ordinary person be able to cultivate him? Therefore, the three of them had a look of longing on their faces. They were prepared in their hearts. If this kid didn't answer, then so be it. But as long as he did answer, he would definitely be an earth-shattering character, an earth-shattering force. He must not be treated lightly. "Hee, you flatter me. Senior is the one who is truly broad-minded. Your Xian Qi is even more powerful. This humble one admires you very much. Moreover, the three of you are of noble character and unquestionable integrity. This humble one's heart is filled with admiration." June Moxie said a few courteous words. After thinking for a while, he felt that there was no need to hide anything. So, he said, this humble one's surname is June, June Moxie. Ah. Ah. When these 5 words, this humble one is June Moxie, came out, the effect was immediately extraordinary. Dongfang Wenqing and Dongfang Wenjian both cried out in alarm at the same time. They actually took 2 steps back. The look of astonishment in their eyes was extreme. It was as if they had seen a ghost in broad daylight. As for the 3rd master, Dongfang Wendao, his eyes were wide open. His face was flushed, and his body was swaying. It was as if he was drunk. His mouth kept going, It was as if there was phlegm stuck in his throat, and he could suffocate at any time. The young master June couldn't help but feel proud of himself as he saw this. Look! This young master's name has already spread far and wide. Even these 3 spirit Xian experts were shocked to the point that they couldn't control themselves when they heard my name. I believe that my reputation is like a thunderclap reverberating in the ears, and the bright moon in the sky is nothing more than this. This is really, quite a sense of accomplishment. June Dashao couldn't help but feel a little intoxicated. You. Who did you say you are? June Mo. Xie. Tian. Tian Xiang City's June. June Family's. Mo Xie. June Family's 3rd young master. Dongfang Wenjian's mouth was crooked as he asked. His tone was full of disbelief. The Xinxian experts of the generation had suddenly become a stutterer. It was clear that this name had given him a great shock. Yes? I am the June family's 3rd young master. What's wrong? The young master June became even more pleased with himself. He raised his head arrogantly, and adopted a posture that others might think was asking for a beating, but he felt that it was very cool and at ease. You're really the June family's 3rd young master. Then June. Zhan Tian is your grandfather. June. Wu Yi is your uncle. Is that right? Dongfang Wendao finally caught his breath. His eyes were wide open, and his nose was panting. The whites of his eyes were rolling, and he looked like he was about to faint. June Moxie became even more proud. He nodded his head in a reserved manner. Yes. It seems that the June family's name isn't just a little big. Even the Xinxian experts are shocked. This is really a great sense of accomplishment. Low-key, reserved. Don't be so ostentatious. June Moxie kept reminding himself. Huff. The 3 Xinxians panted heavily. Their eyes were wide open, and their bodies were trembling. They looked at June Moxie as if they wanted to swallow him whole. But at the same time, their eyes were filled with love, and they couldn't wait to hold him in their arms and love him. You. What are you doing? June Moxie finally realized that something was wrong. He thought to himself, don't tell me these 3 have some kind of special hobby. Why do their eyes look so scary? Thinking about it made his hair stand on end. His shoulders trembled, and he forced himself to calm down. What are we doing? Dongfang Wendao's cheeks puffed up. His eyes bulged like goldfishes, and he gritted his teeth. What do you think we're doing? I'm going to fuck your crippled 3rd uncle 3,600 times. I'm your 3rd uncle. You little bastard, how dare you stab your 3rd uncle with a knife, fuck. I'm your ancestor. What the hell? How dare you take advantage of me? And you want to fuck my 3rd uncle? Do you believe that I won't fuck you to death right now? June Moxie was instantly enraged. You can't scold people like this. How dare you take advantage of me so blatantly? Do you think you're so great just because you have 3 Xinxians? I'll fuck your grandma. You little bastard, how dare you scold me? Dongfang Wendao's anger surged like a mountain, and he was about to rush forward. But before he could finish his sentence, he was slapped twice, and he fell to the ground. Both sides of his head were burning with pain. At the same time, he heard a thunderous roar. "What nonsense did you just say? You son of a b***tch. Dongfang Wendao also realized that he seemed to have said something that he shouldn't have. Jun Moxie's grandma. That was his own mother. How could he scold her? He covered his head with a bitter face and didn't dare to make a sound. Dongfang Wenqing turned to Jun Moxie excitedly. "Mo-xie. Actually, I'm your first uncle." Jun Moxie was completely depressed. "Just now, your brother said that he's my third uncle, and now you're saying that you're my first uncle. You guys even took turns to bluff me, 3 Shenxians. Even if you have 1,000 or 10,000 reasons to doubt me, you should at least know your mother's surname, right?" Dongfang Wenqing's palms were trembling, and there were tears in her eyes. She said excitedly, "Your mother's maiden name is Dongfang Wenqing, and she's our youngest sister. I'm your first uncle, Dongfang Wenqing. This is your second uncle, Dongfang Wenjian. The one who competed with you just now was really your third uncle, Dongfang Wendao." Jun Moxie felt like the world was spinning. Holy sh**t. It can't be so coincidental. These 3 Shenxians are my biological uncles. 3 Shenxians uncles. Since Jun Moxie had accepted this body, he naturally had a thorough understanding of the past of this body. Although he was quite puzzled that his in-laws had not contacted the Jun family, he vaguely knew that it was because of what had happened in the past. Back then, his father and second uncle were plotted against and died in an accident. His mother also fell ill and was taken back by her family. Not long after, there was news of her death. Although Jun Moxie had investigated in many ways about what had happened in the past, he still did not know much. However, he had never given up, and had always been secretly looking for the inside story. In his heart, since he had inherited this body and accepted this family, he had the responsibility and obligation to do his part for this family. The things that had happened in the past were like a huge cloud of fog, faintly discernible. No one could see clearly what kind of conspiracy was hidden in it, and whether there was a mastermind behind it. But if it was only Blizzard's Silver City? Jun Moxie did not believe it. Therefore, he had been secretly collecting information, bit by bit. If there was a need, he would go to the Blizzard's Silver City, the Xinxia Empire, and the Yutang Empire. But in the Tianxiang Empire, Jun Moxie was a major suspect. This was also one of the reasons why Jun Moxie had suddenly thought of supporting Yang Mo, even if it meant getting involved in the Tianxiang imperial family's struggle for power. Otherwise, what does it have to do with me, Jun Moxie, whether the son of the emperor of the Tianxiang Empire is successful or not? As long as I, Jun Moxie, am here, can you touch the Jun family? Humph, I will go in the middle of the night and cut off your head before you have the chance to do anything. I may not be able to kill Shenxian experts for the time being, but even if you are the emperor, or have the protection of Shenxian experts, as long as you are not a Shenxian expert, I can definitely kill you. To be honest, I was too excited yesterday, and made you angry and worried, which is not right. I will try not to say it in the future, but to be honest, I never do things sneakily, and never fight for anything. I write quietly, and earn money. I don't know much about the outside world. But if someone provokes me, I will never avoid it. If I want to scold someone, I will scold them to their face, that is satisfying. Talking behind their back is not satisfying, and I disdain to do it. If I want to hit someone, my fist must hit the flesh to be satisfied, I have a lot of fun writing the evil monarch. Maybe it has something to do with my personality. I am a bit lawless in my life, and I do things my own way, very unscrupulous. I do as I please, very comfortable. To reiterate, I write web novels, fast food novels. My level is too low. I really can't write The Dream of the Red Chamber. I can't write the 4 great novels. I am not Chao Shuoqin. I am not Leo Tolstoy. Well, I won't say the rest. Those who scold or attack, please respect yourself. After scolding people yesterday, I admit, I was a bit rude, but I feel very satisfied. His heart was at ease, and he felt great. Very satisfied. So today, when I went out to buy steamed buns, I stood in front of the stall like a handsome tree in the wind, still reminiscing. Then I heard two young men beside me talking. One said, "Look at that guy, he really knows how to act cool." The other looked at me, his eyes full of jealousy and worship, and said, "You are wrong, he is really not acting cool. Look at that temperament, that demeanor, he is really handsome." Thus, I was very proud of myself. I picked up the 4 steamed buns and threw them out. I generously said, "Keep the change." Then, I leisurely floated back. Chapter 324. Since June Moxie knew so much, how could he not know his mother's name? The 3 of them were obviously excited, and their eyes were filled with affection. It was as if they had seen their loved ones. How could June Moxie not see it? But June Moxie was thinking, isn't this too much of a coincidence? I've just said my name, and now I have 3 uncles. June Moxie smiled bitterly. This was the first time in his life that he had felt at a loss. So, he forced a smile and said, he, my 3rd uncle is right behind me. And, he might be rushing over soon. So, should we wait for him? Why is he behind us? Dongfang Wenjian wrinkled his eyebrows in dissatisfaction. Why isn't he at the front? The 3rd uncle is the commander-in-chief, so he naturally has to accompany the army. I'm the vanguard. June Moxie continued, I'm here to open a path and build a bridge. June Moxie started to sweat as he finished speaking. Even Guan Qinghan and Dugu Xiaoyi couldn't help but chuckle. When did this kid fulfill his duty as a vanguard? Not to mention opening a path and building a bridge, he did open up a path through the mountains, but he could only open up a path that could only allow 1 carriage to pass through. As for building a bridge when there was a river, that was just nonsense. What? Jun Wui is a bastard. He's letting my nephew be his vanguard. What if something happens? Do you have no memory at all? Have you forgotten what happened in the past? Dongfang Wenqing was furious. My sister only has 1 son, and he has the nerve to use him as a general. What a bastard! What a bastard! Dongfang Wenjian and Dongfang Wendao were also furious. They were rubbing their fists, eager to teach Jun Wui a lesson. Everyone was flabbergasted. What was going on? These 3 unacknowledged uncles in front of them were a little too protective, weren't they? Moxie, the rumors say that the Jun family's 3rd young master is a debauchee, a bully, a hooligan, a ruffian. It can't be referring to you, right? Do you have a cousin with a similar name? Dongfang Wenqing found it difficult to find the right words. He even made a conjecture that he couldn't believe. Jun Moxie, Dugu Xiaoyi, Guan Qinghan, and the 4 bodyguards were left dumbstruck. Their foreheads were filled with black lines. I say, big brother, your question is too pointless. Dongfang Wenjian was very dissatisfied with his big brother's question. Look at our good nephew. He is so handsome and tall. At such a young age, he is already so well versed in martial arts. Even our 3rd brother was ruthlessly defeated by him. Does he look like a good-for-nothing debauchee? What do you mean by, defeated by him? Dongfang Wendao was very dissatisfied. He retorted, I saw that he's young, and he's our nephew. So, I was just playing with him. With my skills, how could I lose to a little kid like him? Bah, don't you feel embarrassed saying that? You already knew that he was our nephew before this? What nonsense are you talking about? Dongfang Wenjian snorted disdainfully, you're the one who's not skilled enough, yet you still have the nerve to find an objective reason. Besides, it's not shameful to lose to our own nephew. Why are you wasting time? You really don't have the demeanor of an elder. He paused for a while and said, just like big brother. Such a good nephew had to ask for trouble himself. I've never seen an uncle who would put a bucket of sh*t on his nephew's head. I'm just asking. Dongfang Wenqing said in a dignified manner, you too, don't be impatient. Shut your mouths. Jun Moxie was embarrassed. Since his 2 lives, he had rarely been so embarrassed. Not only did he express his feelings wrongly, he even stabbed his own uncle with a knife. It was fine that he stabbed him, but he still kept showing off his name. It turned out that his name was really well known, but it was a bad name. It was impossible for him to be as bright as the moon in the sky. It was already good enough that he didn't go down in history. Dugu Xiaoyi giggled. She clutched her stomach and trembled. She would mischievously look at Jun Moxie from time to time. She winked, and laughed even harder. Wang Dong and the other 3 turned their faces away. They were afraid that Jun Moxie would see them stifle their laughter. Their faces were distorted, and they were making strange, chi sounds. Guan Qinghan was the most composed among them. She was also trying hard to hold back her laughter. However, her frosty face had already started to show signs of melting. As the daughter-in-law of the Jun family, she had some understanding of her mother-in-law's family. She knew that this family wasn't famous in the world, but they possessed extraordinary power. Today, she had witnessed it with her own eyes. Any one of these 3 uncles had the astonishing strength of Shenxian. Guan Qinghan exclaimed in surprise. She had hidden her worries in the depths of her heart. She knew that they would have to face the Shuehan Manor on this trip to Tianfa. Jun Wui and Jun Moxie were very straightforward. So, it would be very easy for them to get into a conflict with each other. So, she felt a lot more at ease now that they had these great experts with them. Jun Moxie stared at them. He scratched his head. Then, he put down his hands, and shrugged his shoulders. Then, he spoke with an innocent look on his face, Tianxiang City, there isn't a second Jun Moxie. The 3rd generation of the Jun family doesn't have a male heir besides me. But, are you sure that they're talking about me? Don't tell me that it's really you. Dongfang Wenqing and the other 2 opened their eyes wide in shock. You're that heinous and heartless debauchee from the rumors. Fu *k. Jun Moxie's face turned black. He angrily said, who dares to ruin my reputation? I'm not that kind of person. This is the biggest joke in the world. This is the Tang Empire. I'm young and promising. I'm kind and charitable. I'm handsome and elegant. I'm also highly respected in Tianxiang City. I'm chivalrous, courageous, and courageous. It can be said that I'm a household name. Who doesn't know about me? Dugu Xiaoyi made a quack sound. Then, she clutched her stomach and started to convulse. Dongfang Wenqing and the other 2 were also shocked. Then, their faces twitched. Dongfang Wenjian glared at him, you bastard, who are you calling your brother? I'm your uncle. You don't know how to read the situation. Jun Moxie pulled at his hair and said in a depressed manner, your identities, that, have yet to be determined. We'll have to wait for my 3rd uncle to come before we can confirm it. The 3 Shenxian brothers blew their beards and glared at each other. They were depressed. What are you talking about? Don't tell me that your shameful 3rd uncle doesn't approve of our status as his uncles. That night, the tents were set up. Dongfang Wenqing and the other 2 took up 3 of the tents as if it was a given. At night, Dugu Xiaoyi and Guan Qinghan sneaked out. One kept watch, and the other went to take a bath. Young Master Jun, who had just lost a great opportunity, couldn't help but sigh in frustration as he looked at his 3 uncles who had suddenly appeared. He really wished that he could knock these 3 people unconscious and throw them out before they could confirm their identities. Jun Moxie secretly cursed in his heart. Don't be fooled by the fact that you're my uncles. Humph, so what? If it weren't for the fact that I can't beat you, I would have done it already. Plans can't keep up with changes. A plan that can't be put into practice, no matter how brilliant it is nothing but a beautiful picture. I can't carry out my wonderful plan. But, I still have to keep my spirits up and chat with them. It turns out that chatting is also a kind of physical work. So, you're saying that your trip to Tiannan this time is a trap. In fact, it's a trap with no chance of survival. Dongfang Wenqing had a dignified expression on her face. Whether it's a trap or not is another matter. But, the Tiannan region has many enemies. June Moxie smiled mischievously. Moreover, our enemies aren't ordinary people. The Silver Blizzard City is one of them. The Shuehan Manor is another. As for the others, humph, those troublemakers that we've planted in the military camp aren't worth mentioning. The three of them sucked in a cold breath. The Silver Blizzard City is clear. But, what about the Shuehan Manor? June Moxie smiled bitterly. He then explained the whole story. Then, he helplessly said, Sister-in-law insisted on following us to Tiannan. She was worried about us uncle and nephew. How could I not know her intentions? She has always stood aloof from worldly affairs. So, how could she have threatened to die in order to follow us to Tiannan if it weren't for this? I've already thought of this. But, I'm still thinking of countermeasures. Li Ju Tian's bastard son wants to steal our nephew's wife. Fu *k. He must have eaten a leopard's gall. June Moxie had barely finished speaking when Dongfang Wenqing and the other two jumped up. Their faces were filled with righteous indignation. They couldn't restrain their anger. This old man won't say anything when we arrive at the Shuehan Manor. I'll castrate that brat. He's a toad who wants to eat swan meat. Damn it. He'll take a piss and look at his face. Dongfang Wendao angrily waved his hand. June Moxie gasped. He hadn't expected that the three of them would have such a big reaction. Xia, you're talking about sister-in-law, isn't she that cold girl who was with you today? Dongfang Wenqing asked cautiously. Yes, that's her. June Xia casually agreed. He felt that it was rather boring to talk to these three elders, and he was already feeling a little drowsy. Alas, she's also a bitter child. Her husband died before she could even see him a few times. Then, she went to live in your June family as a widow. She's like a flower, but her youth is wasted. She's left to live alone in her room. What kind of pain is that? Dongfang Wenqing sighed. A trace of a smile appeared on Dongfang Wenqian's thin and callous face as he said, Xia, in my opinion, this little girl's forehead is full, her eyebrows are delicate, and her figure is graceful. This is a very suitable appearance for a man. Moreover, her looks are quite fresh, right? June Moxie supported his chin with his hand, and said in a daze, yes, she's quite fresh. Gulp, he then swallowed a mouthful of saliva. That's right. What else is there to say? Dongfang Wendao clapped his hands and said happily, she's surnamed June. So, how can she run away? My eldest nephew is gone, but I still have a younger nephew. As the saying goes, keep the goodies within the family. Shut up, third brother. What nonsense are you talking about? Dongfang Wenqing's face darkened. He scolded in a stern voice, what do you mean keep the goodies within the family? Is this something an uncle like you can say? You're really presumptuous. You're indulging in wild fantasies and making irresponsible remarks. Your head is full of shameful thoughts. Dongfang Wendao was most afraid of this elder brother. Seeing that he was angry, he immediately shrunk his head, and didn't dare to utter another word. Chapter 325. When I saw you during the day, I thought you were someone. But now that I look at you, it's wrong to say that you're a playboy. You're really a good-for-nothing. You were sleepy just now, but when I mentioned this, you woke up faster than anything else. Dongfang Wenqing snorted. Then, he stroked his beard and said thoughtfully, "This is a headache. It's too much of a pity, but if this kid, it's difficult, but it's not." Dongfang Wendao and Dongfang Wenjian snorted and rolled their eyes at the same time. They thought, it seems that Big Brother actually has the same idea, but he's still pretending in front of the two of us, pretending to be noble and virtuous. He's really hypocritical. He has the mouth to talk about others, but he doesn't have the mouth to talk about himself. What a joke. This matter. Let's think about it in the long run. Dongfang Wenqing gave a conclusion, then sighed and said leisurely, "Mos. Uncle scolded you just now for your own good. Uncle was misled by the rumors, thinking that you're quite unbearable. Today I finally see you, but I see that you're so heroic and promising at such a young age. You can be said to be second to none in the younger generation. If your grandmother saw you, I don't know how gratified she would be. If your mother could open her eyes to see you, how happy she would be." At this point, the three brothers lowered their heads at the same time, thinking of their sister who had been in a coma for 10 years, and felt sad. "Tell me the story of mother." Jun Mos was a little sad. When he said the word mother, he unexpectedly found that his heart was trembling. Moreover, when he said the word mother, he didn't feel the slightest bit of reluctance, as if it was a matter of course, in his blood, in his soul, as if he had already accepted it, just like his grandfather and third uncle. Dongfang Wenqing let out a long sigh. At the end of the sigh, there was a faint tremble, and the black beard under his chin trembled slightly, showing the sorrow in his heart. The three brothers looked at each other and saw the indescribable sadness in each other's eyes. "Your mother, her maiden name is Dongfang Wenqing. She is our most beloved little sister. She is gentle, beautiful, and adorable." Dongfang Wenqing's voice was trembling and extremely low. She looked at the flickering candlelight with misty eyes. Her voice sounded like she was talking in a dream. It seemed that as she spoke, her whole mind was immersed in the past. The little sister from back then, the cute little sister, the little sister that made people love her from the bottom of their hearts. "But now, I still remember that the whole family was against my little sister marrying Jun Wuhui. But, my little sister was determined. No matter how they persuaded her, she wouldn't change her mind. She had no choice but to agree to their marriage." At that time, her mother had told her, "When Xian, if things don't go your way, come back as soon as possible. Home will always be home." At that time, his younger sister smiled happily and said, "Whether it's as you wish or not, ask your own heart. No regrets, deep love." And so he left. To this day, he could still remember that happy smile. It was as bright as spring flowers, leaving endless warmth in the family. But who would have thought that when she returned home, her face was haggard and her heart was like dead ashes. She slept for 10 years, never to ask her own heart again. He remembered that when he took her home that day, she was still conscious, but her eyes were wide open and she didn't speak. 3 days later, when his mother and the others were all by her side, his little sister suddenly used the last of her strength and murmured a few words, I'm sorry. No regrets in this life, no regrets in this life. Since you have no regrets, I also have no regrets. Where is my heart? No regrets in the end. No regrets in heaven and earth, no regrets in life or death." After saying that, 2 drops of hot tears slowly flowed out of her almost dry eyes and fell on the pillow. She slowly closed her eyes and fell into a long sleep. Even until she fainted, his little sister's heart was still filled with feelings of no regrets, not deep-rooted hatred. In life, I will follow him, in death, I will follow him. No regrets in life or death. For the past 10 years, their family had thought of countless ways, but they could only try their best to maintain her last chance of survival. But no matter what, they could not let her open her eyes. She had no regrets in her heart. She had already left. Their mother flew into a violent rage because of this matter. She brazenly dispatched 196 Earth Xian assassins who had been trained by the family for many years. They slaughtered the martial world, and wantonly retaliated. The name of the Dongfang family's assassins resounded throughout the world because of this matter. They also paid special attention to the Silver Blizzard City. Everyone in the continent felt insecure, and was terrified. However, the Dongfang family's strength was insignificant. It was difficult for them to shake the entire world. In the end, they were intercepted by the three great masters. Li Ju Tian and Han Feng Shui led the main force of the Dongfang family to the Broken Dragon Valley. Even the elusive great master Yun Bichen appeared at that time. Then, they proposed a battle to decide the outcome of the battle. Their mother single-handedly fought against the Silver Blizzard cities Shao Xingyun and Buyu. At that time, they had agreed that Xingyun and Buyu's lives would be disregarded if the Shao family was defeated. This enmity would be written off. But, the Dongfang family would retire from the martial world if their mother was defeated. That shocking battle could be said to shake the heavens and the earth. Their mother was exhausted from fighting for a long time. She had fought against two fourth-level experts of the Xinxian family, but she had lost. She had been forced to make a vow: the Dongfang family will never appear on the continent unless the Xian beasts come out of Tianfa. The 8 great masters will punish them if they break the vow. At that time, the 8 great masters weren't the same as they were now. At that time, the Blue Master Meng Hongchen and the Eagle Master Solitary Falcon weren't among the 8 great masters. The other 2 great masters had mysteriously disappeared, and had then taken their place. However, their mother had been defeated in that battle. But, she had left behind a backup plan. Shao Xingyun and Shao Buyu would forever be stuck at the 4th level of the Xinxian family. They would never be able to reach the Great Master realm. After this battle, the Dongfang family, who had achieved boundless glory, could not help but suffer a great blow to their vitality. The Dongfang family hadn't appeared on the continent for more than 10 years, except when Mo Yu and Mo Cho had died in battle. Dongfang Wenqing had finally finished talking about the past. Whether it was the 3 Dongfang brothers or Jun Moxie, they all felt as if a huge mountain was pressing down on their hearts. It was so heavy that they couldn't breathe. Jun Moxie looked at the flickering candlelight in a daze. His face was expressionless, but his heart was in turmoil. His father and mother's undying love flashed in his mind for a moment, and his heart was filled with knots. He seemed to have seen the Dongfang family's assassins all over the continent. They spilled blood and took lives. They didn't return empty-handed. They moved unhindered in the pugilistic world. It was as if he had personally witnessed the desperate battle of the Dongfang family in the Broken Dragon Valley. The old lady of the Dongfang family couldn't win that battle. She couldn't not lose. She had no choice but to lose. Even if she had full confidence in winning, she could only lose. Losing is often more difficult than winning. Yun Bichen, Li Ju Tian, and Han Feng Shui, the 3 great masters, were present. In fact, they were the top 3 experts in the world at that time. How could this blood feud be written off if the Dongfang family had won? Written off? It was very pleasant to hear. But, the Shao family of the Silver Blizzard City wouldn't have agreed even if the Dongfang family had wanted to write off the feud. 2 of our ancestors died in battle. How could they not take revenge? How could the 3 great masters allow another war to break out? Therefore, the tragedy of the Dongfang family was doomed when they were intercepted. The old lady of the Dongfang family couldn't lose for the sake of the Dongfang family's survival. She had to admit defeat. He was trying to lighten the heavy atmosphere. Otherwise, the 4 of them would be so stifled that they wouldn't be able to breathe if this continued. You really don't look like one. You look like a little slippery fellow. No, it should be a big slippery fellow. Dongfang Wenqing and the other 2 laughed at the same time. Since the Dongfang family can't come out into the world, then how did you come out? Jun Moxie asked curiously. The Dongfang family can't come out into the world openly. But, we can come out into the world. As long as we don't act in the name of the Dongfang family, and conceal our identities, won't we? Won't we starve to death if everyone huddles up in the mountains? Dongfang Wendao looked at Jun Moxie, and used his eyes to say that he was stupid. Jun Moxie was stunned. Besides, this Xian beast tide is unprecedentedly powerful. So, the allied forces will naturally gather all the strong forces that can be gathered. The reason why the three of us have come here at the same time is because the Shuehun Manor has hired us. Dongfang Wenqing chuckled. She was helping Jun Moxie out of this predicament. Hired? Jun Moxie opened his eyes wide. Today, I received a gilded invitation card. Another of my best friends has finally willingly entered the besieged city, and given up their freedom. Alas! The wedding is scheduled for the day after tomorrow. It seems that my wallet is going to shrink again. What makes me speechless is that they're afraid that I'll steal the groom's limelight because I'm too handsome. Unexpectedly. Unexpectedly. They won't let me be the best man. I'm speechless. Why? Why am I so handsome? God, let me be uglier. I'm praying, don't disturb me. Chapter 326. Of course we're hiring. When has our Dongfang family ever done anything without profit? Dongfang Wenqing glared at him and lectured, this is our basic principle. Haha. Jun Moxie was stunned for a while, and then he suddenly laughed out loud. This was really the case of, if you're not a family, don't enter the same door. He actually has the same principle as me. What are you laughing at? The three of them glared at him at the same time. That year, your grandfather said that we're unscrupulous. Could it be that you're also, Nothing to laugh at. This is a matter of course. After receiving money from others, we naturally need to receive remuneration. How is this unscrupulous? Do we have to work for free to be honorable? That's too unreasonable. Jun Moxie laughed and said, then, what's the price for this operation? 100,000 taels of silver, and it's 100,000 taels of silver per person. The three of us, that's a total of 300,000 taels of silver. Dongfang Wendao proudly stretched out his palm and waved his 5 fingers a few times. This price is quite high, isn't it? Jun Moxie was dumbfounded, and was speechless. With this 300,000 taels of silver, after we bring it back, we'll be able to sustain our family's supplies for a long time. Dongfang Wenqing was somewhat pleased with himself. He stroked his beard, and squinted his eyes, looking very accomplished. Bang! Jun Moxie fell to the ground, and his head fiercely hit the burning candle in front of him. He immediately extinguished one of the candles, and his face was covered with candle oil. What happened? Dongfang Wendao and the other two were shocked, and hurriedly helped him up. Could it be that they're shocked that we've earned so much money in one operation? He had to admit that Jun Dashao was indeed shocked. As for the reason why he was shocked, 100,000 taels of silver per person, and 300,000 taels of silver for the three of us? How can it be so cheap? I've already drunk a few jars of wine. How come I didn't know that the great Shinxian's experts are only worth the price of a laborer? Jun Moxie had been struck by lightning. He had opened his mouth, and his 3 spirit Xian uncles were so ashamed that they couldn't show their faces. Jun Dashao wasn't speaking without thinking. The aristocratic hall had auctioned off the 10,000 gold wine. But this wine was truly worthy of its reputation as a divine wine. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it was capable of turning the world upside down. Moreover, the circulation of this wine was extremely small, and was limited to the upper echelons of Tianxiang. It was truly a wonderful thing that only the nobles could enjoy. So, it became very expensive because of its rarity. Not only within the borders of Tianxiang, but also many people from other countries who were fortunate enough to taste it, and immediately fell head over heels for it. Therefore, the sky-high price of the 10,000 gold wine hadn't fallen. Moreover, the aristocratic hall had declared that it would never sell it again. Therefore, only a very small amount of it had appeared on the black market. And, this wine had been auctioned off by the wealthy merchants who had been fortunate enough to buy it. And, Jun Dashao had learned from Fatty, Hai Chen Feng, and the others that the price of the 10,000 gold wine had soared to a sky-high price of 30,000 taels of silver per jar. Fu *k. Is the wine you're drinking brewed from gold and jade? You can get 10,000 taels of silver just by drinking this wine. Do you think you can hire a worker for 100,000 taels of silver? Dongfang Wendao was extremely depressed. But, he also understood that the Tianxiang Empire's upper echelons had always been extravagant. In fact, they had always competed with each other for riches and honor. Moreover, Jun Dashao had long been known as a debauchee. So, he was afraid that this matter might not be fake. The Dongfang family had once been one of the most powerful families in the world. They might not have been as powerful as the Silver Blizzard City or the Shui Hun Manor, but they were still quite powerful. However, they had always been secretive and low-key. So, they had rarely been noticed. However, they had been quite commendable in terms of manpower and material resources. However, the Dongfang family had been bound by that damned oath for the past 10 years. So, it seemed as if the entire Dongfang family had completely disappeared from the world of mortals. The entire Dongfang family had been living in seclusion in a secret base. And, they had almost cut off all contact with the outside world. Moreover, the great masters had been paying close attention to the Dongfang family in the first few years. They had been afraid that the Dongfang family wouldn't keep their promise. So, the Dongfang family had been forced to bow their heads, and had been completely cut off from the world of mortals. However, the basic necessities of the hundreds of people in the Dongfang family were still an enormous amount. They had a deep foundation, but they were slowly being stretched to make ends meet. In fact, they felt like they were sitting on a mountain and eating it dry after a few years. Therefore, they had begun to contact the great masters in order to restore the Dongfang family's business. After all, the Dongfang family hadn't appeared in the world of mortals. But, they still needed to maintain their livelihood. However, of the three great masters who had witnessed this, Yunbi Chen had always been elusive. And, Li Ju Tian had been traveling the world all year round. So, it was extremely difficult to find them. The 16 words of the Jun family's ancestral message don't make sense. So, it turns out that there's another reason. For Jun Zhantian, it doesn't matter if the entire Jun family dies for the sake of revenge. But, if the Dongfang family is implicated, then that's something that this upright old man can't tolerate. A man with *CK wouldn't be stingy with the blood of his own family. But, he would never wrongly accuse others of their deaths. Jun Moxie feels that his speculation can't be said to be the complete truth. But, it should be quite close to the truth. In fact, living in seclusion for the past 10 years isn't necessarily a bad thing for our Dongfang family. Dongfang Wenqing saw that Jun Moxie's expression was a little sad. She smiled and comforted him, saying, "Our Dongfang family has always been famous for the art of assassination. But, this art of assassination is also the biggest worry and flaw of our Dongfang family." "Why is that?" Jun Moxie was a little puzzled. "Our Dongfang family has existed for more than 300 years. Throughout the generations, there have been many masters. But, there has never been a supreme-level master." Dongfang Wenqing said bitterly. "Oh. What kind of logic is that? Didn't the old lady fight against the two Shinxian masters of the Shao family all by herself? She could win, but she didn't win. This amazing strength isn't the strength of a supreme master." Jun Moxie was quite puzzled. Mother defeated the two Shinxian masters all by herself. Of course, her strength is extraordinary, comparable to a supreme-level master. But, she still hasn't entered the real supreme level. The art of assassination practiced by the Dongfang family has always been about stealth and hiding. One strike is sure to hit the target, and the target is thousands of miles away. An assassin is not the same as a killer. Dongfang Wenqing continued in a serious tone. The Dongfang family has been working tirelessly on perfecting their assassination techniques since the day they were established. Their agility, speed, and agility have become more and more exquisite with each generation. Now, their agility techniques have become ever-changing, and are approaching perfection. Dongfang Wenqing continued in a serious tone. The Dongfang family has always been trying to perfect their assassination techniques. But, the consequence of this is that you have unknowingly entered a crooked path that is difficult to turn back from. Crooked path. Jun Moxie was lost in thought. His face gradually became a little gloomy. You've guessed it. You are also a person who is proficient in excellent agility. I think you can figure it out quickly. Seeing his face, Dongfang Wenqing couldn't help but sigh. She said, if a Xinxian master wants to advance to the supreme level, it doesn't just depend on profound Xian Qi. When a Xinxian master becomes a supreme level master, he will inevitably form his own system, including his unique understanding of Xian Qi and martial arts, thus forming a unique domain that stands out from the masses. It can be said that every supreme is a grandmaster who can establish his own sect. And all of this can only be achieved through long-term exploration. Where does exploration come from? From actual combat, from killing. Constantly discovering one's own weakness in actual combat, constantly improving, constantly going to actual combat, and improving again. After thousands of times, only then will one be able to achieve a complete and thorough understanding, and a sudden inspiration. This is also the reason why every supreme was once a martial arts fanatic. If it wasn't for the obsession of martial arts and Xian Qi, how could one reach the position of a supreme? Just blindly cultivating, one will never be able to advance to the supreme level. Jun Moxie nodded silently. He thought of how Solitary Eagle risked his life to fight the Black Eagle at the peak of the snowy mountain, and lowered his status to look for people to fight. Wasn't it for this reason? As for us assassins, we have more than enough combat experience. But, due to the characteristics of assassins, we lack the experience of fighting with people face to face. If we fight with people face to face, how can we be called assassins? So, although we kill a lot, the only thing we gain is that our skills are getting more and more mature. But, in terms of absorbing the experience of other people's martial arts, we are naturally lacking. When an assassin makes a move, it's about killing with one hit. Although it's sharp and clean, often, if the target isn't killed in one hit, it's the assassin who dies. If the assassin's weakness is exposed in front of the opponent, it's the same as seeking death. This is the biggest flaw of the Dongfang family. So, although our Dongfang family had many experts and countless assassins, when faced with 3 supreme martial artists, we were completely helpless. At that time, we could only choose to wrong our mother and make an unfair oath. Dongfang Wenqing looked at Jun Moxie with her bright eyes. Today, I'm telling you all these, I think you know my purpose. Because your movement skill is even more strange than ours. More agile. Your movement skill can almost guarantee that no one can kill you. But, this kind of movement skill is a bigger obstacle to your cultivation of martial arts. Once you have this kind of peerless movement skill that can disregard any strong experts, you don't need to worry about your life anymore. You can have nothing to fear, and you can move unhindered in the world. But, with this kind of movement skill, you don't need to worry about your life anymore. So, what else is there to worry about? Even if you don't admit it in your heart, even if you think that you won't slack off. But, in fact, when you have this kind of movement skill, your mentality is already different from ordinary Xian experts. You won't be like them anymore, and you won't be on tenterhooks like them anymore. But, it's only under the pressure of death that you can really achieve a huge breakthrough. So, we can only make a breakthrough when the conditions are right, but we won't have any unexpected gains. So, in this life, there's no hope of becoming a supreme martial artist. Jun Moxie was frightened and moved. Because of the powerful capabilities of the Hongjun Pagoda, he could guarantee that even the 8 great masters wouldn't be able to kill him even if they attacked him at the same time, even though he only had the strength of Yu Xian's level. So, he had always been fearless. So, he dared to oppose Tian Xian and Shen Xian even when he hadn't reached the Silver Xian level. Moreover, he had never felt the pressure of death in his heart. But, he asked himself honestly, what if he didn't have the Hongjun Pagoda with him when he transmigrated? In that case, how many times had he died for what he had done? He had always been complacent before, thinking that he was omnipotent and had no scruples. But, if he had continued with this mentality, how much progress could he have made even with the Hongjun Pagoda? Beads of cold sweat slowly dripped down from Jun Moxie's head as he thought about this. And, the beads landed on the table in front of him with a clear and crisp sound. Dongfang Wenqing knew that she had reminded her nephew. And, he was obviously in a state of intense contemplation. So, she couldn't disturb him. So, she quietly waved her hands at her 2 younger brothers, and the 3 of them quietly retreated out of the tent. Jun Moxie was left alone in the tent. He sat motionless in the tent, and frowned as the lights flickered. Perhaps, I should change a little. The Hongjun Pagoda may be an extremely heaven-defying treasure. But, it's precisely because of this heaven-defying existence that its abilities are too powerful. So, it's not beneficial to my progress at present. Jun Moxie sat there for an entire night. But, he still couldn't figure out this problem the next day. Early in the morning, Jun Moxie walked out of the tent with 2 dark circles under his eyes. He stretched his body twice. Dongfang's long beard fluttered in the wind. He stood quietly under a big tree at the entrance of the tent and looked at him. Why, haven't you figured it out yet? Jun Moxie smiled bitterly. He looked up at the sky and said, you've given me a big problem. Can't I use such a wonderful technique? Or, when facing an enemy, I know that the opponent is stronger than me, but I still refuse to use it. Or, is it that Yu Xian doesn't use it against the supreme experts? Isn't that courting death? You've been thinking hard all night, and this is the problem you've been struggling with? Dongfang Wenqing actually lost her composure and widened her eyes. Chapter 327. Orderly voices, accompanied by a strange and vigorous rhythm, resounded with a loud and shocking rumble. The dust and fog grew, and rose into the sky in strips. This was the symbol of an elite army. If it was an ordinary miscellaneous army marching, the dust stirred up would be as messy as a mushroom cloud. Only when tens of thousands of people marched in unison, in a neat formation, and without the slightest bit of disorder, could they step on the dust and soar into the sky. The majestic voice naturally brought out a subtle feeling that could topple the mountains and overturn the seas. It seemed that with the arrival of these majestic footsteps, no one in the world, no army, could stop the march of this army. Jun Wui is worthy of being a member of the Jun family. His military discipline is indeed admirable, and I can't help but admire him. Dongfang Wenqing stood at the top of a big tree, gazing into the distance, and finally sighed. That kid is really not simple. Dongfang Wenjian and Dongfang Wendao couldn't help but sigh as well. From afar, the thousands of cavalrymen in front of Jun Wui looked like a surging torrent. Even the horses seemed to have set off at the same time, and landed at the same time. No matter from the front or the side, it was a straight line. Neat and uniform, as if they were cut by a knife. This was just strict discipline, but the expression on every soldier's face was full of pride. This was the cohesiveness of an army. An army that was like a plate of loose sand would never have such a proud expression on their faces. Facing such a neat and grand army, even Jun Moxie and Jun Dashao were shocked. When Master Dashao left, only the original army under Jun Wui was disciplined, but there were also a large number of private soldiers from the big families, and the young master's bodyguards. Those people were very difficult to manage, and it was not an exaggeration to say that they were arrogant and unruly. Who would have thought that in a short period of a month, these people would be trained so smoothly? It seemed that the third uncle's management of the army was really good. Jun Dashao, who wasn't familiar with military affairs, wouldn't know that this wasn't as simple as just having one skill. Fortunately, this was Jun Wui. If it was someone else, they would have to go through a lot of trouble. Jun Moxie led his 250 men to meet them. But he was met with a cold face. The unruly Jun Dashao could only smile in the face of such a cold face. Because the owner of this cold face was the third master of the Jun family, Jun Wui. Jun Wui looked at his nephew with a solemn face, but he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Which vanguard in every dynasty would do this? Like a herd of sheep, they disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. Not even the slightest bit of communication was sent back. Acting as a vanguard to this extent, even if it couldn't be said that no one would be able to do it in the future, it was at least unprecedented. In fact, Jun Dashao had done a pretty good job in opening the way. All the troubles and potential troubles along the way had been resolved by Dashao's unique methods. Whether it was legitimate or not, the task had been completed. Therefore, the army did not meet with any more obstacles along the way. Jun Wui was very satisfied with this. Even the higher-ups of the army who knew about it were very satisfied. At least, they couldn't find any fault with it. The only problem was that they didn't strengthen their communication. But, what about those who didn't know about it? They would undoubtedly think that this kid had no sense of responsibility. Although they didn't meet with any trouble along the way, it was likely that Grand Marshal Jun, or even Grandpa Jun, were helping them from behind. The more serious problem was that the number of people who didn't know about it was huge. Out of 100 people in the army, at least 99 would answer. Who asked them to have a good third uncle and a good grandfather? This involved the problem of convincing the masses. With such a lack of discipline and organization, if they weren't punished, how would they be convinced? Therefore, Jun Wui didn't have any other choice. He could only give young Master Jun a good scolding the moment he saw him. Jun Moxie lowered his head and listened to the scolding. In a daze, he thought that his third uncle was praising him for doing a good job. In any case, he didn't hear the contents of the third uncle's words clearly. In the end, he was scolded until he fell asleep. Jun Moxie's intense gaze hinted that the third master was venting his anger. So, Jun Wui had no choice but to hastily explain the various matters regarding the encampment. Then, he gave a few simple instructions. Then, he dismissed everyone. Humph, Grand Marshal Jun is really awe-inspiring and murderous. I haven't seen you for more than 10 years, and you're even more awe-inspiring than before. You let your own nephew clear the way for you, and even after completing the mission, you still have to scold him. You didn't even say a word of encouragement. You're really an iron-blooded man with ruthless self-discipline. A sarcastic voice rang out. Jun Wui raised his eyebrows and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Who is it? Come out. Humph, I'll come out then. Do you think I'm afraid of a grand marshal like you? With a swoosh, 3 people appeared in the tent. Brother Dongfang. Jun Wui called out in surprise. He turned to look. Second brother Dongfang. Third brother. It's you guys. After the surprise, his eyes flashed with a strong sense of guilt. In an instant, he felt that he was too ashamed to face them. Humph, of course it's us. Jun Wui, you're in such a hurry to go to Southern Heaven City. Are you courting death? Are you tired of living? Dongfang Wenqing snorted. Although her words were full of sarcasm, her face was not very ugly. As long as one was attentive, it would not be difficult to feel a little concern in those words. The hatred the 3 brothers had for the Jun family was not that deep. Even in the past, they had only vented their anger on the Jun family. Now that they had seen the rumored debauchee nephew, Jun Moxia, turn out to be such a promising young man, they felt even less resentment. After all, it had been more than 10 years since that incident. Although the source of this disaster was Jun Wui, but wasn't Jun Wui also a victim? In fact, he was the biggest victim. 10 years of being a cripple, 10 years of repentance, and thousands of sufferings were all borne by him. Not to mention, Jun Wui did not know about it in the beginning. When Jun Wui finally found out about Han Yen Yao's identity, everything was already out of control. Looking at the heavy tiredness in Jun Wui's eyes, as well as the deep sense of guilt when he saw the three of them, they knew that Jun Wui had been far more miserable than them for the past 10 years. Even though they had deep feelings for each other, after the massacre 10 years ago, they had already vented a lot of their emotions. After such a long period of time, it was no longer as unforgettable as it was in the past. But Jun Wui was completely different. The incident started because of him. Whether it was intentional or not, it was the truth. Although it was unintentional, it started because of him. It was an unintentional mistake, but it became the heaviest burden of his life. In these 10 years, he must have felt as if thousands of ants were gnawing at his heart every day and night. He and the others couldn't bear it any longer. So, they could get drunk and fight crazily. Then, they could use the extreme physical exhaustion to drive away the pain in their hearts. However, Jun Wuyi's legs were disabled. So, he could only endure in silence. The four of them looked at each other. In an instant, all four of them had a strange feeling, as if they had returned to 10 years ago. The scenes of the past flashed before their eyes, and they couldn't help but breathe heavily. Slowly, Jun Wui's eyes turned red, and the corners of his eyes became moist. He opened his arms and forced a smile. Brother Dongfang, I missed all of you for the past 10 years. We haven't seen each other for a whole 10 years, 2 months, and 7 days. He looked at the sky, and said in a hoarse voice, in another 4 hours, it will be the same time on that day of that year, the time that brought the grievous news to you. Jun Wui's eyes suddenly turned blood red. The hearts of the 4 people beside him shook heavily. That's right, it was that day, that hour, 10 years, 2 months, and 7 days, and 4 hours. Jun Wui's timing was so accurate. What did that mean? It meant that in the past 10 years, Jun Wui had never forgotten about this blood feud. But he could only endure it. He knew who his enemy was, but he could only endure it. Plus, there was the pain of being crippled, and the pain of being separated from his lover. At this moment, Dongfang Wenqing and the other 2 finally understood how Jun Wui had survived the past 10 years. This one sentence was enough. Third brother, these 10 years, you've suffered. Dongfang Wenqing stepped forward and hugged Jun Wui tightly. The 2 of them hugged in silence. Jun Wui closed his eyes slightly, and the hot tears that were about to flow out of his eyes were hidden in his heart. The muscles on his face twitched, but he clenched his teeth and didn't make a sound. After 10 years, he finally received this sentence from the Dongfang family. This sentence of understanding and concern. 10 long years. Although it was a little late, but it was still here. Who knows how many times I've broken down in these 10 years? How many times? Jun Wuyi's expression didn't change, but his heart was filled with a sour and stinging pain. It was as if the Yangtze River was surging violently. Dongfang Wenjian and Dongfang Wendao thought about Jun Wuyi's 10 years of suffering, and then looked at the touching scene in front of them. Suddenly, their eyes turned red, and their noses became sour. They almost shed tears. They had no choice but to turn their heads and cough twice with all their might. This was because they were afraid that they would burst into tears and burst into tears. However, even if this coughing sound was barely concealed, it was still a trembling sound. As a man, how could they not know how Jun Wui had survived the past 10 years? If they were in Jun Wui's shoes, they would have committed suicide to apologize. However, Jun Wui had stubbornly endured these 10 years of torment until today. After a long time, everyone's emotions returned to normal. Chapter 328. What nonsense are you talking about? Mo Xia is our nephew. We can't let anything happen to him. You're also our brother. You can't let anything happen to you either. Dongfang Wenjian glared at him. It's not that I don't want to. However, on the way here, I received a few more reports from the military. Although the origin of this Xian beast tide is still unknown, the scale of this tide is huge, and the degree of potential danger is so deep. It's said that the king of Tian Fa is furious. He issued an order half a month ago. All Xian beasts of 4th level and above are to leave Tian Fa and participate in this war. Jun Wui smiled and looked at Dongfang Wenqing. One of your Dongfang family's vows has been broken by more than half. Isn't Tian Fa broken by the Xian beasts? How come there's still half of it? Dongfang Wenqing was happy at first. But then, she asked doubtfully. Because it's been confirmed that this war was initiated by the 3rd and 4th Xian beast kings of the Tian Fa forest. Tian Fa's most mysterious and powerful leader did not participate. Jun Wui took a deep breath and said, "This is the latest news. But, I reckon that the Tian Fa forest's Xian beasts will not be able to hold out as the war breaks out. Then, the leader of Tian Fa will make his move. I'm very sure of this. So, the Dongfang family's vows have only one thing left. The sword peak will collapse. So, that's how it is." Jun Moxie's heart stirred. I wonder what the sword peak looks like. I'll go and flip it over if I have the time. Moreover, the Shenxia Empire and the Yutang Empire have also sent their armies to help as the Xian beast tide grows larger and larger. Even the Imperial Court of the Prairies has sent 10,000 elite cavalry. This news has been confirmed by the military. The 3 empires have deep grievances with each other. So, it's easy to imagine that they will drag each other down in this war. Moreover, the Silver Blizzard City's troops were led by Xiao Buyu, one of the 2 elders of the Xiao family. So, they were all from the Xiao family. My Jun family's hatred is as deep as the sea. Xiao Han and I are absolutely irreconcilable enemies. So, something is bound to happen. In addition, the Shui Han manor and my Jun family also have a grudge against each other. So, we must guard against them. Jun Wui finished speaking in one breath, and then let out a long sigh. He said tiredly, the situation is extremely grim. It's so grim that I'm starting to feel discouraged. Among the 8 supremes, besides the first supreme Yunbi Chen, the 3rd supreme Han Feng Shui, the heaven-seeking supreme Mo Wen Tian, and the azure supreme Meng Hongchen, the other 4 are all here. Jun Wui's voice was heavy, but his eyes were burning with passion. To Jun Wui, being able to experience the elegance of these supreme being powerhouses up close was something that he longed for. Perhaps there's one more person you don't know. Dongfang Wenqing said in a deep voice, Feng Wanyun, the hurricane swordsman, is already on his way, or perhaps he's already arrived. Feng Wanyun. Jun Moxie, who had been listening quietly from the side, raised his eyebrows. This guy shouldn't be a match for the solitary eagle anymore, right? Apart from the Silver Blizzard City and the Shui Han Manor, the other major powers of the continent have also sent their people. The most famous among them are the Bailey family, the Duanmu family, the Beigong family, the Wenren family, the Xikong family, the Zhuqiu family, the Diwu family, and the Ouyang family. Including me, Dongfang, there are 9 great families gathered in Tian Fa. Although there aren't many people from each family, they're all very tough. Especially the Duanmu family, even the Duanmu Chao Fan has come. Duanmu Chao Fan. Jun Moxie snorted, this name is really memorable. Dongfang Wenqing also smiled and explained, the Duanmu family's Duanmu Chao Fan is a bit of a stutterer. When he announces his name, he thinks that he's very arrogant and drags it out. But the longer he drags it out, the more it sounds like Chao Fan to others. Therefore, during a gathering of the 9 great families, everyone just called him Duanmu Chao Fan. Over time, his real name is almost forgotten. Very good. Jun Moxie said solemnly, the handles of the wok are basically made of wood. Duanmu Chao Fan, is actually quite a story. Ha! Everyone burst into laughter. Only then did Dongfang Wenqing continue. In addition, people from the Golden Soup Fort, the 7 Dragon Mountains, the Soul-Severing Palace, and the Haotian City have also come. Other than those who are part of an organization, there are also some high-level profound practitioners who come and go by themselves and hermit experts who are innumerable. Dongfang Wenqing smiled bitterly. This is the secret information that Li Ju Tian revealed before I came. As for how many more people have come in during this time, I don't know. Jun Wui's brows wrinkled as he listened to these illustrious names. The more reinforcements there were, the more terrifying the Xian beast tide was. Fu*K. There are so many. Jun Moxie couldn't help but whistle. Then, he said, why don't we just flatten the Tian Fa forest if there are so many strong people gathered here? Then, everyone can catch a few Xian beasts and bring them back as pets. Is it worth making such a big fuss? These people have nothing better to do after eating their fill. What do you know? These words were shouted out by the 4 of them at the same time in unison. 8 ferocious eyes glared at the brat who spoke rudely at the same time. Moxia, your experience is still too shallow. You don't know the dangers of this. The Tian Fa forest stretches for thousands of kilometers. It covers almost 1/3 of the continent. How many Xian beasts are there? At the very least, there must be tens of millions of them. And, that's only considering the Xian beasts who are at the 4th level and above. These people wouldn't even be enough to fill the gaps between their teeth if they were to face them head-on. To be honest, even a mouthful of saliva from a Xian beast is enough to drown these so-called experts to death. Dongfang Wenqing was very angry. So, she tried to wipe out her nephew's ignorance. You know that it's just an if. But, you'll need to have such a large area even if you want to meet all of them at once. Tens of millions of Xian beasts, wouldn't they be squeezed to death on the prairie? Not to mention, we're in the mountains. Jun Moxie shook his head in disdain. Fighting a war doesn't mean that one side is stronger with more people. In the end, you have to fight small battles one at a time. Many small battles are linked together to form a military campaign. Many battles are linked together to form a so-called war. Many wars are fought before there is peace. Seeing that Dongfang Wenqing was about to flip out again, Jun Wui quickly tried to smooth things over. He frowned and said, it's because there are so many people. So, it's very troublesome. It wouldn't be too difficult if there were only the troops of the 3 empires and the king of the prairie. Even the Shui Han Manor and the Silver Blizzard City would have been able to control the situation. After all, these people know that the big picture is the most important. So, they can control the war. So, there's certainly room for mediation. But, there are so many forces gathered together. Moreover, they have a long history and deep-rooted history. So, it's hard to tell how many people there are. Perhaps, a few words from any 2 forces could trigger a large-scale fight. Who doesn't have 3 or 6 friends? After all, the Xian experts of the Jianghu can't be compared with the disciplined army. This problem is indeed very troublesome. Dongfang Wenqing and the other 2 nodded. Moreover, there must be a unified commander for so many people. At least, there must be a supreme commander who can control the situation. Only then can we fight properly. Otherwise, wouldn't it be like sending rations to the Xian beasts if they swarm and attack as they please? Jun Moxie added. The first half of his sentence had won the unanimous approval of the 4 elders. But, the second half of the sentence sending rations had successfully attracted 8 supercilious looks. This is a very obvious understanding. But, this position of Supreme Commander is not only in name but also in reality. It's an arduous and unrewarding position. In fact, it can even lead to many disputes. At least, the commanders of the three empires and the prairie won't allow themselves to be subservient to others. Because, they are here to represent their country. Comparatively speaking, this problem is relatively easy to solve. It is the duty of a soldier to obey orders. As long as the higher-ups can come to a consensus, everything will be easily solved. However, the most difficult to solve are the unruly people of Jianghu. These people are originally undisciplined, and they are even more undisciplined. Not only do they refuse to obey each other, but they also don't have the ability to command a large-scale military. Based on the prestige of the major forces, almost no one can accept the command of an ordinary commander. This is the biggest problem of the Allied forces. Jun Wui frowned deeply. But, the battle of the Xian beasts is imminent. Sigh. He sighed deeply and said helplessly, I've been in the army for half of my life. I've fought in so many big battles. In terms of the forces that I've commanded, none of them have been as magnificent as this one. In fact, all of them combined might not even be able to compare to this one. But, there's never been a battle where I couldn't see any hope of victory before the battle even started. Only this time, I don't even have the slightest chance. But, the opponents this time are the Xian beasts. You should know that the strict hierarchy between the Xian beasts is beyond anyone's imagination. Especially when the king of the Xian beasts personally instigates a large-scale battle. Every order must be strictly followed. With a long whistle, all of them can attack. Similarly, with a long whistle, all of them can retreat like the tide. Everything points to disaster. Jun Wui, Dongfang Wenqing, and the others looked at each other and read the same words from each other's eyes. Since we're already here, can we still retreat? Let's just take one step at a time. Saving people is a good thing, but it's meaningless to throw our lives away just to save people. In my opinion, it's enough that we can guarantee the safety of our people. As for the life and death of the others, does it have anything to do with us? Jun Moxie smiled heartlessly. In this sudden and strange battle of the Xian beasts, the person who was the most certain and confident in his heart was naturally Jun Dashao. It could be said that if the troops were to be divided into 3 or more groups, Jun Moxie could almost guarantee that his troops would be unharmed. But, the other troops would be completely annihilated. If it really couldn't be done, then they could just go out and act tough and be done with it. Chapter 329. You brat, don't talk nonsense. Under such circumstances, how could he still have such selfish thoughts of self-preservation? At least 10 million Xian beasts will flood into the mainland if we lose this battle. How many civilians will suffer when that time comes? Even the most conservative estimate is that it will be tens of millions of them. This is a calamity. Jun Wui spoke up in a stern voice, we can only put our personal grudges to the back of our minds at this critical juncture, and work together as one. Only then will there be a little hope. Yes, Wu Yi said it well. This battle between the humans and the Xian beasts will determine the fate of the continent for the next 100 years. I'm afraid that we will lose miserably if we don't unite as one. Li Ju Tian's arrogance won't allow him to issue a supreme summon if the situation is easy. I'm sure that he saw the crux of the matter, and was forced by the dire circumstances to issue a supreme summon. Otherwise, he will be the greatest sinner of all time. Dongfang Wenqing smiled bitterly, their morale will be boosted if they win the first battle. But if they lose, I can guarantee that at least a third of their men will slip away. After all, they want to take advantage of the chaos to fight for hegemony. But, they will be finished if that happens. The deep-rooted bad habits of humans. Everyone wants to fight a favorable battle, and everyone wants to hit a drowning dog. But when the favorable battle becomes a tough bone, and the drowning dog becomes a big tiger, I believe that most people will try their best to hide in the back and let others fight first so that they can take advantage of the situation. In the end, when they see that it's no good, they will just run away. I'd rather lose face than lose my life. The sky is high and the water is wide. In any case, I'm not the only one who's going to lose face. Jun Moxie shook his head as he spoke sarcastically. But, he saw that the complexions of the four people were getting darker and darker. It seemed that they were about to gang up on him. Jun Moxie hastily laughed, I'm going to take a piss. I can't hold it in. I haven't even discharged my urine yet. You brothers, take your time to chat. He turned around and left as he spoke. The four people in the tent looked at each other in dismay. They were helpless against this mischievous brat. Now that things have come to this, there's no point in thinking too much. We'll meet Li Ju Tian once we arrive in the southern heaven city. Then, we'll join your army to protect you and Mo Xie. We'll stay together if things don't work out. We'll have a chance to save our lives. It's like Mo Xie said, it's a good thing to save people. But, it's meaningless to throw away one's life for the sake of saving someone. Let's act according to the situation. Jun Wui nodded solemnly. He looked up at the sky and sighed. I really don't know where the source of this catastrophe came from. What caused such a great disaster? The Xian beasts wouldn't come out of Tian Fa for no reason. Something or someone must have provoked them. If I knew who the culprit was, I would skin him alive. This is simply taking the lives of the world as a joke. The other three agreed in unison. Jun Dashao had slipped away, and had returned to eavesdrop in the corner of the tent. He felt cold sweat trickling down his entire body. He felt wronged in his heart. My original intention was to let them teach the Shui Han manor a lesson. Who told them to snatch our Jun family's daughter-in-law? But, in all honesty, I really don't know why this matter has developed to such a spectacular extent. I didn't mean for this to happen. So, you can't blame me for this. Jun Wui found out that Guan Qinghan and Dugu Xiaoyi had secretly followed him to the southern heaven city the next day. Jun Wui almost went crazy when he saw the two women hiding in the shadows. In fact, it seemed as if they had done something shameful. In fact, he nearly cursed Jun Moxie to death every time he saw him. In fact, he almost chased them down with a stick. How can these two women come to such a dangerous place? This had led to Jun Mo Xie and his third uncle playing a game of hide-and-seek. Jun Mo Xie would escape to any place where Jun Wui might go. He would escape faster than a rabbit, and would never meet him. The army finally arrived at the southern heaven city on the third day. It had already been the 33rd day since they had set out from the Tianxiang city. The army had traveled 400 miles a day. So, they had traversed over mountains and rivers for more than 10,000 miles. Everyone sucked in a mouthful of cold air as soon as they arrived at the southern heaven city. The land outside the southern heaven city was barren for thousands of miles. Of course, there were still forests, but the places where people used to live were now in ruins. Especially when he looked in a certain direction, Jun Mo Xie laughed so hard that his stomach cramped up from the pain of other people's misfortune. That was where the Shui Han manor used to be. But, it had now become the headquarters of the Xian beasts. Along the way, even at the back of South Sky City, there were large groups of high-level Xian beasts howling over. They would swarm and attack a lone Xian expert if they saw one. However, the Xian beasts were very disciplined. Not a single Xian beast could be seen more than 300 miles to the north of the southern heaven city. It could be seen from this that the Xian beast's target was the people of the southern heaven city. Perhaps it was limited to those who had a grudge against them. For example, the Shui Han manor, Li Ju Tian, or his son, the southern heaven city was no smaller than the Tianxiang city. It was the largest city in the south of the continent. However, the surrounding mountains had been occupied by the Xian beasts. He had shaken the entire continent. He also finally understood that a normal person would never be able to communicate normally with this kind of lunatic. It was like a chicken talking to a duck. Everything was in a foreign language. The southern heaven city didn't show the slightest bit of neglect in the face of the arrival of the Tianxiang reinforcements. Wan Wuyan, the commander of the garrison in the city, respectfully welcomed Jun Wui's entire army into the city. Jun Wuyan had been quite doubtful about this at first. It must be known that the southern heaven city was as famous as Tianxiang's capital city. It occupied a vast area. However, it also had a large number of residents. Moreover, reinforcements had arrived from all over the world. So, Jun Wuyan had thought that the city would be overcrowded and overwhelmed. So, he was afraid that there wouldn't be enough space in the city to accommodate these 20,000 troops. But, it would be too risky to station most of the soldiers outside the city. So, Jun Wuyan had some concerns about this. However, the 20,000-strong army easily entered Tiannan city. General Wan Wuyan, who was guarding the city, did not show the slightest bit of embarrassment. This was a strange and puzzling matter. Then, the entire army entered the city. And, the mystery was finally solved. Both sides of the road in the southern heaven city were filled with Jianghu warriors. They were coming and going. Occasionally, they could see wounded people with bandages on their bodies and bandages on their heads. Although it was a little noisy, it wasn't very chaotic. But, everyone felt as if something was missing in the city. Jun Dashao thought for a long time before he finally realized what was wrong. He said, "Why doesn't there seem to be any commoners in this city?" His words woke everyone up. It wasn't that there weren't any commoners in the city. It was just that there were very few of them. Moreover, most of them were young and strong men. The old, the weak, the women, and the children were nowhere to be seen. Wan Wuyan, the commander of the southern heaven city, smiled bitterly and said, "The Xian beast tide is so huge. How could I dare to neglect it? As early as half a month ago, I had already escorted all the commoners in the city out of the city. All the old, the young, the women, and the children have been moved 300 miles away. Only the young and strong men and the necessary goods are left behind. If we can defeat the Xian beast tide in the end, I will personally go there and bring my fellow villagers back. But, if by any chance, they can't live and work in peace and contentment there, but at least they can protect their lives." Jun Wui was filled with deep veneration. "General Wan, I admire your devotion to the country and the people." Wan Wuyan smiled bitterly and said, "To tell you the truth, there have been many powerful and ferocious mystical beasts that have come to the city to wreak havoc at least a dozen times in this unprecedented calamity. Why should we make things difficult for these common people in this cruel war that can easily cause thousands of casualties? I have no one in the imperial court. I have been stationed in the southern heaven city for more than 12 years. I have long since formed a deep bond with every plant and tree here. Although the people here are a little uncivilized, in my eyes, they are all my parents, my brothers, and my best friends. Now, even if I have the opportunity to leave, I won't choose to leave." The way he looked at the southern heaven city was like how he looked at the hometown he grew up in. It was full of warmth and nostalgia. The atmosphere became somewhat stifling. There must be a lot of people migrating this time, right? It must have taken a lot of effort, right? Jun Moxie changed the topic. The southern heaven city is not like the inland. Although the area is large, the population is not large. Including the surrounding areas and the city, a total of 1,543,900 people have migrated. Wan Wuyan was somewhat gratified and proud. He chuckled, "It must have taken a lot of effort. But, it's still more than 1,500,000 lives. It's worth it even if it's a little hard work." "Awesome." Jun Wui looked at the ancient southern heaven city and said in a heavy tone, "General Wan's painstaking efforts won't go to waste. I won't allow General Wan's efforts to go to waste." "I hope so." "Everything depends on 3rd General Jun." Wan Wuyan was silent for a moment. Then, he said in a low voice. Wan Wuyan reorganized the army and arranged a campsite. Then, he walked towards the city lord's meeting hall with a group of people. Jun Wui and the others were startled when they turned a corner. This is the meeting hall. Crap. This is the meeting square. All the irrelevant buildings in front of the city lord's mansion had been demolished. Only a large drill ground that could accommodate 10,000 people was left. It was unknown when a high platform had been erected in front of the city lord's mansion. It was more than 10 feet high from the ground, and had been wrapped with a thick green cloth. Jun Moxie almost thought that they were going to put up a stage to perform a big opera at first glance. Countless tents had been set up on both sides of the stage. Large flags were fluttering in the wind in front of these luxurious tents. The autumn wind was fierce, and nearly 100 large flags were fluttering at the same time. It looked very imposing. These flags had the following words written on them: Shuihun Manor, Silver Blizzard City, Ouyang, Duanmu, Baili, Beigong, Wenren, Zhuqiu, Xinxiai, Yutang, Soul Severing Palace, and so on. Jun Moxie was in high spirits. He beamed with delight and said, I didn't expect that I would witness the legendary martial arts convention today. It's so fucking exciting. I wonder if the beggar clan will be among them. However, Jun Wui wasn't as simple-minded as Jun Moxie. So, he immediately frowned. They would have to rely on the unified command of the military officers if they wanted to win this war. Those Jianghu tyrants might be able to command dozens or hundreds of people in a group fight. But, Jun Wui didn't believe that any of these people would have the ability to command tens or hundreds of thousands of troops. However, the military forces were clearly placed on an equal footing with the martial arts families. In fact, the position of the military forces was even placed at the back of the line. The powerful Xian experts wouldn't have paid attention to the military forces in ordinary times. But, was this an ordinary time? Even if they were watching from the crack of the door, they would still have to fight this war first. But, they still wanted to deal with the Xian beast king of the Tian Fa Empire with a unified command. Wasn't this the biggest joke in the world? General Jun, our Tian Xiang's military tent is over there. Wan Wuyen smiled and pointed. There was a relatively large tent in the middle of the tent. It was surrounded by a green cloth. The thick pillars on both sides of the tent were deeply buried in the soil. The tent's curtain was rolled up high. It could be seen that the inside of the tent was very clean and tidy. It was also quite spacious. It could accommodate a dozen or 20 people. A blood-red flag was fluttering in the air in front of the tent. The three words, Tian Xiang, and Jun, were floating in the sky like a divine dragon. They were faintly discernible in the strong wind. This flag was at least 10 feet taller than the other family's flags. Its surface was also much wider. Moreover, it was the only flag with a surname on it. Huh? Jun Wui looked at Wan Wuyen in a puzzled manner. Wan Wuyen chuckled. There was a look of reverence in his eyes as he said, the Jun family has 4 generals. They are the military family that I, Wan Wuyen, admire the most. The White General, Jun Wu Hui, the Iron Blood God of War, Jun Wu Meng, and the Blood General, Jun Wui, are the pride of my Tian Xiang. I, Wan Wuyen, have always been proud that our Tian Xiang has such a iron blood family. These people are gathered in my southern heaven city. But, this is my territory after all. This is Tian Xiang's territory. This is the only thing I can do. I won't let the heroes of our Tian Xiang bow down to others. General Jun, please. Many thanks. Jun Wui was silent for a long time. Then, he solemnly and cautiously said these 2 words. This Wan Wuyen has heard many people's opinions about the Jun family from their conversations these past few days. Be careful, General Jun. Wan Wuyen cautiously warned in a low voice. Jun Wui slowly nodded. There was a look of unswerving determination in his eyes. Jun Moxie's eyes flashed with a cold light. Jun Moxie pushed the wheelchair forward slowly. The 4 Tianxiang deputy generals were lined up behind him. Their hands were on the hilts of their swords, and their eyes were focused. Dong Fang's 3 swords were proudly moving forward at his side. The group of people leisurely entered the venue under the watchful eyes of the various families. If anyone were to pay attention, they would have noticed that Jun Moxie was pushing the wheelchair. He was walking in a straight line in the middle of the venue. There wasn't an inch more to the left, and there wasn't an inch less to the right. This was an extremely arrogant attitude. This is my land. My territory. I have the final say. I'll walk however I want to. It seemed as if the families on both sides of the road were being inspected. Hundreds of gazes shot towards them like sharp arrows. Suddenly, the atmosphere of the entire venue became somewhat oppressive. It seemed as if the arrival of Jun Moxie and Jun Wui had brought a heavy pressure to the Tiannan city. These 6 people were calmly moving forward. However, it seemed as if they were looking at an invincible torrent of steel. They were silently, resolutely, and unstoppably moving forward. The autumn wind suddenly whistled over the Tiannan city. It was getting stronger and stronger. The dark clouds in the sky rolled over, and slowly converged towards the center. A gust of wind whistled through the air. Sand and pebbles were sent flying, and dust and smoke rose in all directions. Dozens of flags suddenly fluttered towards the south. Even the rustling of the flags suddenly became uniform at this moment. The gust of wind rolled up the dust and blew towards them. The 4 generals and Dongfang Wenqing slightly squinted their eyes. Their bodies paused for a moment. However, Jun Wui, who was at the forefront, looked indifferent. His expression was cold, and his eyebrows didn't even twitch. Jun Moxie, who was behind him, was as calm as the clouds. His eyebrows were like a dormant dragon, as if he could fly out at any time. His handsome face had a rare sense of desolation. He didn't move an inch. He didn't care about the changes in the sky, nor did he care about the hundreds of gazes around him. It was as if he didn't see or hear anything. Their advancing speed was neither fast nor slow, and they didn't change at all. In everyone's eyes, this pair of uncle and nephew, who were sitting and moving, was like a peerless divine sword, splitting the wind and clouds in half. Splitting open a broad road that could only allow 2 people to advance. This was Tianxiang's territory, and it was also the closest to Tianxiang. However, Tianxiang's army was the last to arrive. Many people had already lost their patience and were very dissatisfied. They were waiting for the arrival of Tianxiang's army to embarrass them. This was also the main reason why the aristocratic families didn't go out to welcome the army into the city. However, looking at this pair of uncle and nephew, no one had any thoughts of going forward to reprimand them. No one thought of the previous discussion. Everyone's hearts were actually heavy. It was all respect. Even Xiao Han, who was most jealous of Jun Wui and wanted Jun Wui to die, couldn't help but feel a little envious at this moment. There was a deep sense of inferiority in his eyes. Don't tell me, don't tell me. I'm really not as good as him. Jun Wui may not have the cultivation of Xinxian, nor did he have the martial skills of a supreme martial artist. However, this famous general who had once commanded millions of soldiers on the battlefield was showing his unparalleled demeanor to the heroes of the world, to the countless Tianxians, Xinxians, and supreme martial artists. This kind of demeanor, if not for the fact that he had millions of soldiers in his hands, if not for the fact that he was a great general who could set fire to 1,000 miles with a flick of his finger, if not for the fact that he was a supreme commander who had always been victorious, and if not for the fact that he had the heart to win, no one could have this kind of demeanor. Even the world's #1 Xian expert would not have this kind of demeanor. This was the domineering aura of holding mountains and rivers in one's hands. The aura of disdain for the common people. Although there were only 2 of them. But, it was enough. That kind of cold demeanor, from these 2 people who seemed to be calm and composed, started to spread out arrogantly. even if there were mountains of knives and forests of swords and seas of hell in front of them. I will step over them. I will flatten them. The generals of the Shenxi Empire and the Yutang Empire stood up in unison. They couldn't help but straighten their bodies as they looked at their former mortal enemy. Moreover, they were also their military idols. And their gazes were fervent. This was the mutual understanding between soldiers. A line of 9 people slowly entered the tent in the midst of absolute silence. They walked in the same rhythm, and slowly entered the tent. The winds and clouds in the sky suddenly changed, and covered the sun. And the sky seemed somewhat dark in an instant. Suddenly, someone laughed out loud and said, "You're worthy of being called the Blood General. You're worthy of being called the Blood General. Your demeanor of a commander who can intimidate the entire world is very convincing. I, Sikong Yi, admire you. Moreover, I apologize for not coming to the city gate to greet you, General Jun. This Sikong would like to have a drink or two with you if General Jun has some free time." A majestic and heroic laughter resounded. Then, a tall and sturdy man strode out of the tent under the banner of the Sikong clan. He had the back of a tiger and the waist of a bear. His stature was extremely majestic, but it gave people a very harmonious and comfortable feeling. His facial features were rough, and his cheeks were shaved green. But one could still see that his thick, curly beard had sprouted out. Jun Moxie took a cursory look at this man. He was at least 2 meters tall. He stood in front of the tent like a towering iron tower. But he also looked like a steep and lofty mountain. This man was the #1 expert of the Sikong clan, Sikong Yi. Brother Sikong is too serious. This younger brother is the host. But I've arrived the latest. So, I shouldn't have apologized to all the seniors and brothers of the clan. You and I can drink and chat merrily as long as Brother Sikong is interested. Jun Wui's clear and bright voice resounded in a calm tone. Good. Good. Sikong and Yi laughed heartily. Haha, this family's lord, was just about to speak. But, you've taken the initiative. 3rd General Jun, I'm the Duanmu family's lord, Duanmu. Fried rice. Greetings, this man was speaking in a drawn-out manner. He was stuttering a bit. But, he still had a very serious look on his face. In fact, one could hear a hint of pretentiousness in his tone. Jun Moxie chuckled. One could tell that this man was none other than the uncle Dong Fong had mentioned before, Duanmu fried rice. He didn't know whether he was extraordinary or not. But, he was certainly pretentious. The Duanmu family's lord is very polite. I'll pay a visit to the family's lord in a moment. Jun Wui's voice was neither happy nor angry. But, it gave off a warm and comfortable feeling, like a spring breeze. No, you're welcome. Duanmu fried rice. Duanmu Chao Fan laughed twice. He was about to speak again when an eccentric voice suddenly spoke, these two are putting on airs. The last person to arrive is the Tianxiang Empire's Jun family's Jun Wui, right? Jun Moxie looked towards the source of the voice, and saw that the man who had spoken was 28 or 29 years old. He was tall and straight, and had an extraordinary bearing. His facial features were handsome, but there was a hint of maliciousness between his eyebrows. He was standing under the Shuehan Manor's flag. He was dressed in an embroidered robe, and there was an antique sheathed sword hanging diagonally from his waist. One could tell that it was a rare divine weapon at a glance. He was looking at Jun Moxie with a disdainful expression. Jun Moxie instantly understood who this man was. Who else could it be other than Li Tingyun, the son of Li Ju Tian? You're just a pretty boy who relies on Zhu Meng. You're extremely vulgar. How could there be a war between humans and beasts if it weren't for you, boy? I'll find an opportunity to cripple you. Jun Moxie laughed, and stood up. How could Jun Wui take part in a war of words between the younger generation? So, the debauchee Jun would naturally step in. He spoke in a light voice. This man's eyes are on the top of his head, and his nose is pointing upwards. Is he the young master of the Shuehan Manor? You're also the local bully here. Young Master Li Tingyun, am I right? You. Humph. Do I still need to rely on my power to deal with you? Li Tingyun's eyes revealed a trace of maliciousness and contempt as he spoke in a gloomy manner. The situation is so urgent, and yet your Jun family has arrived so late. What are your intentions? Can't others ask what you're doing? We're aware of the urgency of the military situation. But, why are you so late? First, you want to ask why His Majesty didn't issue an order earlier. Second, I want to ask your Shuehan Manor why you're so late since the situation is so urgent. Why didn't you ask for help earlier? Jun Mocs snorted and said, that's right. The Shuehan Manor's reputation is very important. Your Shuehan Manor had been so arrogant and self-conceited. You've been stubbornly stubborn. You've dragged this matter to this point. How could this have happened? You're so incompetent that you've asked for help. You don't feel ashamed, and yet you have the face to blame others? Everyone here can ask us what we're doing. Only you and your Shuehan Manor can't ask. Jun Moxie smiled. Even if you want to blame us, there are so many senior experts here. So, how could you even get a chance to ask? Don't forget that Master Zhu Tian is your father, and not you. What qualifications do you have to ask? Who do you think you are? You dare to talk to me like that? You've got guts. Who are you? Li Tingyun's eyes narrowed. He knew that he wasn't a match for the man in front of him. So, he changed the subject, and started to interrogate him about his identity. My elder brother is Jun Moxie. Jun Moxie smiled proudly. You must have heard of my great name, right? Don't you feel like you've heard of my great name for a long time? It's like thunder piercing the ears, and the bright moon hanging high in the sky. But, I've finally met you today, and I've realized that your reputation is well-deserved. So, you're Jun Moxie. That debauchee of the Jun family. That debauchee of the Jun family. That lecherous lecher of Tian Xiang. This young master of the manor has heard of you for a long time. Your notoriety is well-deserved. Li Tingyun felt that he had caught the man's weak point. So, he laughed twice and said, it's just that this place is full of outstanding talents. How can a ruffian like you sneak in here? What qualifications does a lowly person like you have to speak to this young master of the manor? Jun Mocs laughed mischievously and said, I'm a scoundrel who doesn't shrink from any crime. There's nothing to deny about that. But even if I'm a debauchee, I'm not shameless enough to snatch someone else's wife. Young Master Li, you're my senior in this regard. You're a role model for me to learn from. You. Guan Qinghan was a good girl from Tsinghua University. But, she was forcibly taken away by your Jun family. The two of us fell in love with each other. So, what's wrong with me saving her from a fiery pit? Not to mention that your elder brother has been dead for many years. Do you expect her to guard your dead brother's memorial tablet for the rest of her life? Is there such a logic in this world? Li Tingyun's face turned slightly red. He suddenly became angry. He obviously didn't want to admit that he was despicable. So, he hastily came up with words to quibble. Fell in love with each other. You saved her from a fiery pit. Did you ask for her permission? Jun Moxie faced upwards and laughed heartily. I didn't expect that someone in this world could be shameless to such an extent. Not only did you abduct a commoner's daughter, but she's also his daughter-in-law. What's more, you even threatened her family. You said that you'd exterminate their entire family if they didn't hand over this woman. Li Tingyun, you fell in love with each other and saved her from a fiery pit? You're very different from the rest. I, the number one debauchee of Tianxiang City, have no choice but to concede defeat. I'm impressed by you, young Master Li. I'm sincerely convinced and full of admiration. Your shamelessness is number one in the world. Most of the people present at the scene didn't know about this matter. So, they couldn't help but look at Li Tingyun with disdain when they heard these two men speak. The Shui Han manner was overbearing. But, it had provoked public anger at this time. So, how could they be afraid? The people of Jianghu valued lust above all else. But, Li Tingyun would have committed a great taboo if he had done such a thing. Enough. There's no need to say anything more. A deep and angry voice came from inside. The voice wasn't loud, but it shook everyone's ears. Several silhouettes slowly walked out. Suddenly, the entire drill ground was filled with a surging and tyrannical aura. The man in the lead had a tall stature. His facial features were simple and unsophisticated. He had 3 strands of black beard on his chest that were fluttering in the wind. He had a pair of slender eyes that radiated power in all directions. He didn't seem angry, but he had a natural bearing that could dominate the world. Everyone could feel that this man was overbearing to the bones. He wasn't deliberately arrogant. But, everyone could feel that no one in this world was worthy of his attention. In fact, he even dared to fight against the blue sky above his head. This was the man who had spoken earlier. Jun Moxie hadn't seen him before. But, he knew that this man looked like he was in his 40s or 50s. He had been famous for more than 60 years. He was Li Ju Tian. Apart from him, no one else could have such a domineering style that could shake the heavens and shake the earth. The great master Li Ju Tian was at least 100 years old according to his actual age. But, he looked so young. Jun Moxie secretly cursed. No wonder this old man can have a 20-year-old son even though he's over 100 years old. It looks like he can have a few more children. He's a monster. Li Ju Tian was followed by the great master of life and death, Shi Changshao, the cold-blooded master, Lei Wu Bei, and the divine eagle, solitary eagle. There was another man at the very back. His face was ice-cold. He was dressed in black. He had a black robe, black shoes, and a black scabbard at his waist. This person looked like a sharp, pitch-black blade. He was just standing there calmly. But, everyone could feel the threatening aura of his sword qi. The aura of his sword qi soared to the 9 heavens. There was no need to think about it. This man was Solitary Eagle's rival, Feng Wan Yun. He was the only substitute amongst the 8 great masters. He was also a peerless swordsman. He was a peerless powerhouse. However, Jun Dashao was confident that the divine eagle, solitary eagle, had successfully broken through under his guidance. So, he had thrown off this old rival of his for decades. Everyone has arrived. So, I invite the leaders of each family to gather in the main hall. We will discuss the strategy to repel the enemy. Li Ju Tian glanced around. He didn't mention the argument between his son and Jun Moxie. However, his eyes were calm when he looked at Jun Moxie. But, Jun Moxie could clearly feel that those 2 eyes were like 2 sharp swords that had pierced through the sky. And, they had fiercely pierced his eyes. It seemed as if the depths of his heart and soul had started to tremble in that instant. This was a kind of fear that had arisen from the bottom of his heart. I can't match him. I can't match him. This was the first time in Jun Moxie's life that he had felt defeated and dispirited. Jun Moxie hadn't faced a great master before this. He had faced the great masters of life and death, Shi Changshao, the cold-blooded master Lei Wu Bei, and the divine eagle, solitary eagle. But, he had felt this way when he looked into Li Ju Tian's eyes. This was probably some sort of spiritual attack. One would never be able to advance an inch in their life if they were to plant a seed of fear in their hearts. However, this great master Li Ju Tian's protectiveness had made Jun Moxie very angry. He was angry from the bottom of his heart. This is a quarrel between two juniors. You're the second great master, and you're using this method to vent your son's anger. This is a loss of grace. Bullshit, second great master. What kind of joke is this? However, Jun Mo Xia also understood how much Li Ju Tian spoiled his son. He clearly knew that his son was in the wrong. But he didn't say anything. Instead, he used his power to bully the victim's family in front of everyone's eyes. It was no wonder that the two Xian Beast Kings had come together to break his son's legs. They hadn't even tried to take his life. But they had still provoked such a strong reaction from him. He hadn't even hesitated to issue an order to summon the great masters. But he still refused to compromise. Jun Moxie had faintly understood why this matter had escalated to such an extent. Jun Moxie quickly closed his eyes, and revolved the art of unlocking the heaven's fortune. And that dreadful feeling disappeared in an instant. However, he still felt awed in his heart. Li Ju Tian's strength was obviously several levels higher than that of the likes of Solitary Eagle and Lei Wu Bei. He was truly worthy of being the second great master of the world. Everyone echoed Li Ju Tian's words one after another. No one had noticed that Li Ju Tian had already attacked Jun Moxie. They believed that no one would uphold justice even if someone had discovered it. After all, the biggest fist was the greatest justice. Offending the second great master for a mere debauchee of a younger generation? Everyone would have made the same choice. A long and faintly discernible roar seemed to have come from the horizon. Everyone was startled, and pricked their ears to listen carefully. In an instant, the howl suddenly grew several times louder. In an instant, it seemed as if it had already arrived in the sky. In a breath's time, it seemed as if it had passed through tens of millions of miles of space. From being inaudible, it turned into a thunderous roar. Then, it exploded in everyone's ears as if the heavens were falling and the earth was splitting apart. Puff! Several of the southern heaven city soldiers fell to the ground. They spouted blood from their mouths. They had been injured by that long roar. And the person who had issued that long roar was at least 5 kilometers away. Such terrifying lethality. The roar suddenly stopped after it had shaken violently. But it seemed as if it had been very determined. Then, it abruptly stopped. At this moment, everyone could tell that the whistling sound was actually very clear and melodious. The roar had barely faded when the Xian beasts raised their heads and roared in unison. Millions of Xian beasts roared in unison. The roars of hundreds of thousands of Xian beasts resounded like a tsunami. It was as powerful as an earthquake. The ground beneath everyone's feet slightly trembled, and dust rose up. The roar had formed a huge volume, and had penetrated the blue dome of heaven. The dense black clouds had suddenly vanished. They had been driven away by that violent roar. The sky was clear and bright. Li Ju Tian's complexion changed. He looked into the distance with a dignified expression. His voice was filled with unconcealable shock. Tian Fa. Boss, has come out. Chapter 330. Millions of Xian beasts roared in unison after that soul-stirring and unforgettable howl. Then, 2 different howls resounded one after the other. Everyone in the southern heaven city could clearly hear them. One of the 2 howls was clear, and the other was vigorous. They belonged to the Xian beast kings of Tian Fa, Long Crane and Bear Mountain. However, only a few people knew that these 2 were the instigators of the Xian beast invasion. With a swoosh, a huge white crane suddenly flew from the north to the south like a bolt of lightning. From afar, that white crane had a wingspan of at least 50 to 60 feet when fully spread out its wings. There was a bright red crane crown on its head. Under the bright sunlight, the crown shone with a dazzling brilliance. Its long sharp beak was like a sharp sword that could cut through the wind and clouds. In the instant it flew over the city lord's mansion, everyone could clearly see that the huge white crane seemed to look down with disdain. Its huge wings covered the sky, and in an instant, the heavens and the earth dimmed. It was as if a dark cloud had suddenly floated over and then floated away, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Meanwhile, a huge silhouette was speeding through the forest in the distance. It didn't matter whether it was the road or the trees in front of it. It didn't stop for even a moment, and crashed into a big tree that could be hugged by it. And, it was broken in the blink of an eye. Then, it forcibly passed through the trunk of the tree. That silhouette had already run away without a trace by the time the tree collapsed with a loud rumble. Li Ju Tian's silhouette suddenly flew to the roof. His hands and feet didn't move during this process. In fact, not even a single strand of his hair moved. But, he just flew up in a very abrupt manner. He stood still on the roof, and a vivid and lifelike shadow could be seen at his original position. But, it was gradually fading away. This was no longer a movement technique. In fact, it was closer to a magic trick. Is this the Venerable Mei? This Li Ju Tian has failed to welcome you. Li Ju Tian gathered his Xian Qi, and his deep and dignified voice echoed from afar. This could be seen from the fact that he had taken some time to speak after he had ascended to the roof. He was afraid that he would lose face in front of this Lord of Tian Fa, and was unwilling to be at a disadvantage. That sonorous voice suddenly rose into the air and slowly spread out. It floated towards the south in a solemn manner. The people present initially heard it to be calm, but once the voice spread out, it was as if thunder was roaring and 10,000 horses were galloping through the mountains and valleys. Its momentum was unusually great. His voice echoed in the forest like a tide. After a long while, he finally rested. My apologies for not welcoming you earlier. I failed to welcome you from afar. Welcome from afar. Welcome, welcome. Cries of alarm resounded in the surrounding forest. It was evident that some of the low-level Xian beasts had been shaken by Li Ju Tian's voice. This had given rise to a lot of panic. One had to admit that Li Ju Tian's sound transmission technique wasn't as good as the Tian Fa Beast King's roar. Moreover, it wasn't as good as the Xian Fa Beast King's roar. But, they were still on the same level in terms of their realms. A long, long time passed. A clear voice rang out unhurriedly. Everyone clearly understood that the person who spoke was at least a few dozen miles away from them, but when they heard the voice, they felt as if this person was speaking to them right in front of them. This person's voice was very strange. It was neutral and calm. It was impossible to tell whether this person was a man or a woman. Li Ju Tian, so it's you. Who else could have such a profound cultivation? Ha, no wonder. I was wondering why my two younger brothers were so furious. They wouldn't even pay attention to an ordinary person. In fact, they even suffered a loss. Not bad, not bad. Li Ju Tian, you've made progress. You've truly made progress. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. They felt as if their scalps were going to explode. Li Ju Tian was an apex figure in everyone's eyes. He was publicly acknowledged as the second of the 8 great masters. However, this person didn't have the attitude of an equal. In fact, he had even complimented him by saying, "You've made progress." This compliment was like a teacher saying to a well-behaved and obedient child in a kindergarten, "Little friend, you've made progress. You're such a good kid." Li Ju Tian's voice was matchless and powerful. However, the opposite party's voice was calm, and didn't seem to be exerting any strength. But, which one of them wasn't an expert? How could they not hear that this person's cultivation was much higher than Li Ju Tian's? It wasn't just one level. Even if they were at the same level, it would at least be like the difference between the solitary eagle and Li Ju Tian. Li Ju Tian's voice had resonated from the same distance. But, the opposite party's words hadn't been echoed. An ordinary person's cough would have resonated in this mountainous environment. But, he hadn't been able to get an echo even though he was dozens of kilometers away. What kind of control is this? Just this control ability alone was already at the acme of perfection and had reached the pinnacle of perfection. Li Ju Tian raised his voice and said, "The cause of this matter is that these two have provoked my Shui Hun manner for no reason. I, Li Ju Tian, should have retaliated. But, where did I go wrong? And, how can Venerable Mei not see who's the one who's suffered a loss? This Shui Hun manor is this old man's life's work. But, it has now been reduced to ashes. I don't know what Venerable Mei would say if I were to demand an explanation from Venerable Mei." Li Ju Tian's words had a hint of condemnation in them. The opposite party's cultivation was higher than his. However, Li Ju Tian was the second most powerful great master in the world. So, he couldn't show weakness even if he lost. The distant voice suddenly became sharp, "Li Ju Tian. You've hit my younger brother. Do you think you're in the right? Do you think I'm so easy to bully? Li Ju Tian, are you sure that you're not dreaming?" Everyone's hearts trembled at the same time. This is another extremely protective master. He's unreasonable and cunning to such an extent. Today, my horizons have been broadened. Previously, I saw Supreme Master Ju Tian shielding his own son and avoiding the sharp topic. Then, I met another master who's even more unreasonable. I wonder if this is the cycle of karma and retribution. Jun Moxie stroked his chin, and felt some appreciation in his heart. Awesome. He has the same temperament as me. I'll definitely give some benefits to Venerable Mei in the future. I wouldn't dare. Li Ju Tian snorted and said, "It's just that justice is in the hearts of the people. There's a reason for everything. Even the world's #1 expert can't be unreasonable." The man let out a long laugh. "Reason? Li Ju Tian, your joke isn't pleasant to listen to. Li Ju Tian, have you ever been reasonable with anyone in your life? How come you're the one being reasonable when it comes to your own situation? Justice is in the hearts of the people. You, Supreme Ju Tian, have just said this, but do you believe it?" These words were very bitter. The so-called laws of the world were only used to bind ordinary people. They had no binding power over the strong people of the world. Justice was in the hearts of the strong. But, it was just empty talk. In the world of the strong, the one with the bigger fist was the one with the right to reason. The man's words were a little sophistry, but they were the truth. Moreover, he had ridiculed Li Ju Tian. Jun Moxie felt very happy as he listened to this. He almost stepped forward and pointed at Li Ju Tian's nose and scolded him. "You old bastard. You keep saying that justice is in the hearts of the people. But, have you ever been reasonable? Has your son ever been reasonable when he snatched someone else's wife? Where is the justice? The wicked will be tortured by the wicked." Li Ju Tian snorted heavily and said, "Venerable Mei's words seem to indicate that she's going to protect him without distinguishing between right and wrong?" Great Master Li Ju Tian was the second in command of the 8 Great Masters. So, he didn't want to speak against his conscience. So, he avoided the previous topic, and made it clear. Moreover, more than half of the world's strongest experts were gathered here. So, it would be difficult for the Venerable Mei to deal with the formidable forces present here even if he had the ability to transcend the heavens. The man spoke in a cold and unyielding voice, "I'm going to protect him." "What can you do, Li Ju Tian? The 8 Great Masters have shaken the world in the secular world. But, I don't care about you. Li Ju Tian, please think about who you're talking to before you speak." The man paused as he spoke till here. It seemed as if he had something to say. But then, he suddenly roared in anger, and asked in a very fierce manner, "Li Ju Tian, when did you enter the elusive land of the immortals? How dare you leave a wound on my 4th brother's body? You've got guts." The power of this roar was earth-shattering. In fact, even the winds and clouds in the sky were stirred up by this roar. It could be seen that the Lord of Tianfa was very angry. It seemed that the injured bear Shan Shan had arrived in front of him. So, he had also seen the wounds on his body. June Moxie's heart stirred. Hermitage? What kind of place is that? Why haven't I heard of it? He looked around, and saw that everyone had a perplexed expression on their faces. It was obvious that they didn't know. June Moxie pondered a little deeper while everyone was puzzled. The hermitage wasn't something that he could touch upon for the time being. But, Li Ju Tian's ability to injure Bear Shan Shan was a Xian beast king of Tianfa. It must be known that a Xian beast's physique was far superior to a human's. And, Bear Shan Shan was a Xian beast king. So, he had withstood the attacks of Shi Changshao and Solitary Eagle. And, he hadn't sustained any serious injuries. In fact, he had even managed to escape unscathed. So, it was easy to imagine the formidable defensive power of his body. But, Li Ju Tian had managed to injure Bear Shan Shan with the elusive vein-splitting sword. Let go when you must. Venerable Mei, don't provoke a calamity because of a moment's impulse. Li Ju Tian's voice was laced with warning. Venerable Mei will have to think carefully if you cause too much trouble and incite the dissatisfaction of the Holy Land, right? Li Ju Tian had unexpectedly evaded the question of when the other party would enter the hermitage. Ha ha ha. The man laughed out loud with a bone-chilling voice. His laughter reverberated in the air, and didn't stop for a long time. Then, he spoke word by word. Li Ju Tian, are you threatening me with the Holy Land? Chapter 331. Today's second update. I'm going to faint. I've typed the word ticket incorrectly. I've corrected it in time. I won't dare. I won't dare. I'm merely advising the Venerable One to reconsider. Li Ju Tian's voice was calm. Venerable Mei, the heavens and earth cannot be insulted. The Holy Lands are not to be trifled with. I'm afraid that you've already committed a taboo. Reconsider. Reconsider. Taboo. Li Ju Tian, don't overestimate yourself. Since when have I ever cared about such taboo? Even if the Hermitage, the Great Golden City, and the illusory ocean of blood were to come to Tianfa, what can they do to me? The voice was wild and arrogant. 8 years ago, I, Mei, could make Yunbi Chen never dare to show his face in this world again. Now, I'm confident that I can make the 3 Holy Lands return from Tianfa in defeat. Venerable Mei has spoken in such a manner. Then, this Li will wait and see. Li Ju Tian's figure floated down from the roof as soon as he finished speaking. This indicated that he was done with the conversation. A clear roar was heard from the distant forest. Immediately afterward, a series of earth-shattering rumbling sounds rang out. From the east, west, and north, all 3 directions shook the sky at the same time. Dust and smoke billowed into the sky, covering the sun, moon, and firmament. Countless Xian beasts came out of the forest like a tide. They were lined up in neat formations, and were galloping through the open space outside the city in waves. There was only one direction, south. It seemed that the Tianfa king had also pulled back his forces. However, the Xian beasts' forces from these 3 directions made everyone in the southern heaven city's scalp tingle. Dozens of golden tigers were lined up in the east. They had a sharp silver horn on their heads, and were lined up in front. A snow-white tiger king was at the forefront of the formation. The horn on its head was golden in color as it galloped forward like a gust of wind. After that, the various dark beasts formed a long and orderly square formation, and they flashed past like they were on parade. With such a speed that was like a bolt of lightning, they actually continued for an entire 2 hours. Level 9 Xian beasts, golden tigers. Solitary Eagle was standing behind Li Ju Tian. His eyes were wide open. There are so many of them. I'm afraid the Tiger King leading them is already at the peak of level 9. In the west, dozens of beautiful lions that looked like they were carved out of white jade led the way, and they also rolled past. The one in the west is the white jade lion beast. Dongfang Wenqing explained in a serious tone. Both of them knew that Jun Moxie was still a greenhorn, so he wouldn't know too many high-level Xian beasts. So when they saw him walk over to them, they intentionally explained to him. The sound of heavy footsteps could be heard from the north as hundreds of giant bears led an army of tens of thousands of Xian beasts. The mountain-splitting bear is also a level 9 mystical beast. The Tianfa forest actually has such a strong foundation. Suddenly, countless silhouettes soared into the sky from the surrounding mountains and valleys when the troops were halfway through. It seemed as if 100 birds were paying homage to a phoenix. All kinds of colorful birds were circling in the sky. After a moment of confusion, all kinds of beasts gathered together, and flew over the southern heaven city like a colorful cloud. These are flying Xian beasts. There are too many of them, too many of them. Dongfang Wendao sniffled as he opened his mouth to reveal his teeth. Every one of them is at least level 8. Oh my god! How did Li Ju Tian provoke this group of ancestors? How did they create such a big battle array? The sound of rustling in the mountain forest made everyone's scalp tingle. It was the sound of the Xian beasts crawling on the ground. One could only imagine how many of them there were if they listened to the torrential sound. Everyone was standing at a high place. Their faces were deathly pale as they looked at the spectacular scene before them. The appearance of these high-leveled Xian beasts would normally cause a sensation, and would make people want to buy them at sky-high prices. But now, dozens, hundreds, thousands, and tens of thousands of them were passing by them. Oh my god! This world is crazy. Not a single one of these thousands of Xian beasts is below level 6. Almost everyone's mouth had turned into an O shape. There was one exception who didn't have an O shape. Jun Moxie and Jun Dashao were also watching this scene. But no one knew what they were thinking. There were countless question marks in their hearts at this moment. Everyone in the world knew and recognized the two strongest forces of the Xian continent, the Silver Blizzard City and the Shuehan Manor. No one could deny that the strength of these two great clans was transcendent. But now, this mysterious king of Tianfa had spoken another name. Hermitage, Great Golden City, Illusory Ocean of Blood. What do these names represent? What does it mean? Where are the 3 holy lands? How tyrannical are the people of these holy lands? Why haven't I heard of these names before? He recalled the words that Li Ju Tian had said, the heavens and the earth can't be insulted. The holy lands can't be passed down. Li Ju Tian had raised the so-called 3 holy lands to the same height as the heavens and the earth in his mind. What does this mean? There were a total of 10 top-notch experts in the world. They were the 8 great masters. Then, there was the hurricane swordsman, Feng Wan Yun, and the great assassin, Chu Chihuan. However, these great masters were nothing compared to the number 1 king of Tianfa. They had only heard his voice, but hadn't seen him. Anyone with ears would have been able to hear it. Anyone with eyes would have been able to see the formidable strength of this number 1 king of Tianfa. Yun Bichen didn't dare to show his face 8 years ago. And, I'm confident that I can make the 3 holy lands return from Tianfa in defeat. These words were still ringing in everyone's ears. One word. Only one word. And, it was enough to make the number 1 great master, Yun Bichen, never to show his face again. What kind of strength does this require? Jun Moxie's face was as calm as still water while everyone else's faces were filled with shock. However, his heart was in turmoil. And, several new questions had arisen in his mind. This number 1 king of Tianfa possesses such formidable strength. Moreover, he has already decided to show his face. So, why didn't he wait for a few days before the war breaks out? Why didn't he show his face and deal a heavy blow to the allied forces? The Allied forces would have suffered a fatal blow if he had done so. In fact, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he would have been able to determine the outcome of the war between the humans and the beast race. Moreover, this conflict has been going on for 2 months now. But, he hasn't shown his face yet. So, why is he showing up now? He has already endured for 2 months. Can't he wait for a few more days? It was undeniable that his appearance had created a strong deterrent effect. In fact, it could be said that it was incomparable. His strength was like that of a god in the clouds. And, it was an indelible blow to the experts of the Allied forces. Moreover, it had an irreparable effect on the morale of the Allied forces. However, the problem was that he didn't need to do this. What was there to be afraid of if he had such strength? No matter how the Allied forces attacked, he shouldn't have taken it to heart. As long as he showed up, he would have been able to turn the tables and change everything. What's the purpose of all this? This series of questions made Jun Moxie's head spin. He rubbed his eyes and discovered something strange. When the Xian beasts had retreated in full force to the south, almost everyone had gone to watch from a high vantage point. However, there was one person who hadn't moved from his original spot. At this moment, this person's silhouette seemed so lonely and abrupt. It was a young man. He stood proudly under the Bailey family's flag. His face was calm and indifferent. His posture and his expression clearly expressed one thing. I'm not interested in any of this. Everything that happens here has nothing to do with me. Apart from his indifference, there was a faint feeling that his heart had turned to ashes. It seemed as if he no longer cared about anyone or anything in this world. Jun Moxie suddenly developed an interest in this young man. It was an extremely strong interest. Not because of anything else, but because of his loneliness and indifference. Jun Moxie couldn't help but think of himself in his previous life. He had drifted away from the crowd and was indifferent to everything. Wasn't I like that? Jun Moxie was undoubtedly a freak. Therefore, he wasn't interested in ordinary people's flattery. Those who could attract his attention were always lonely people. At this moment, Dongfang Wenqing and the others had once again gathered around him. When they realized that Jun Moxie wasn't by their side, they immediately gave up on watching the Xian beast tide outside the city and hurriedly looked for him. Right now, Jun Moxie was a treasure in the eyes of the three of them, a genuine treasure. The three of them were even imagining that their precious nephew would be brought back to the Dongfang family. Their mother, the old lady of Dongfang, would be delighted to see such an outstanding grandson. Moreover, a mother and son are connected by heart. Perhaps he would be able to awaken their little sister who had been asleep for 10 years, therefore, the three of them were like old hens that had just hatched their chicks. They wouldn't allow Jun Moxie to escape from their line of sight. Their nephew's miraculous agility wouldn't be a problem for him to protect himself. But, the three of them were still worried. The people of the Silver Blizzard City and the Shuehan Manor were present. Those people wouldn't use any gentlemanly methods. They wouldn't be able to cry even if they were to cry in case of an accident, therefore, they immediately came to Jun Moxie's side once they realized that their nephew wasn't by their side. Even the spectacular scenery outside wouldn't be able to attract their attention. Do you know who that person is? Jun Moxie pointed at the young man who was standing alone below. He's a member of the Bailey family. Moreover, he's destined to be abandoned by the Bailey family. What's there to ask? Dongfang Wendao glanced at him and replied disdainfully. Why? Why are they destined to be abandoned? What's the reason? Jun Moxie asked in a puzzled manner. Look at these people. The great families aren't fools. They are well aware of the ferocity of the Xian beast tide. They've been pressured by the Shuehan Manor and Li Ju Tian to send people to help. But, they've sent people who are at the peak of Tian Xian's strength. So, how can they be weak? Even if they can't defeat such a powerhouse, they'll still have an opportunity to escape. So, they won't suffer too much damage in this way. But, do you see any of them sending young experts? Dongfang Wenqing's face was full of ridicule. Throwing away their lives. Cannon fodder. June Moxie was somewhat surprised. Chapter 332. I don't dare to turn on my computer again. There's a huge rainstorm, and the lightning is as dense as the hairs on my legs, one after another. I don't want to transmigrate, exactly. Youngsters with such cultivation bases coming to the heavenly south region to assist in the battle at this critical juncture are basically throwing their lives away. In the face of so many high-level Xian beasts, a mere Yu Xian and an Earth Xian wouldn't have much of a chance of survival. If this wasn't courting death, then what was? To put it bluntly, they are the cannon fodder that you mentioned just now. Dongfang Wenjian smiled mercilessly. Mo Xia, don't ever think that your movement technique is exquisite. But if I were to throw you into the profound beast tide and surround you from all sides, then no matter how exquisite your movement technique is, it would be difficult for you to escape death. So, don't act recklessly and don't leave our line of sight. But this young man is only 25 or 26 years old, right? He was obviously at the peak of Yu Xian's cultivation level, and was probably only one step away from the Earth Xian realm. With his age and cultivation level, he was a rare genius. Which family wouldn't treasure such a talent? Why was the Bailey clan willing to send such a young man to his death? Isn't that a pity? June Moxie was puzzled. This reason is not worth mentioning at all. It's actually very simple. It's because this person is not a direct descendant of the Bailey clan. He's the son of a concubine. Dongfang Wenqing revealed a regretful smile. This man's name is Bailey Luo Yun. He is a rare genius of the Bailey family. Usually, when a baby is born, the person with the highest cultivation in the family will comb through the meridians of the baby. This is to reduce the number of illnesses and also to lay the foundation for the cultivation of Xian Qi. When this Bailey Luo Yun was born, there was no one to sort out his meridians, but he still started cultivating Xian Qi at the age of 3. At the age of 10, he successfully broke through the limit of the 9th grade Xian Qi. At the age of 15, he broke through the peak of the silver grade and reached the gold grade. At the age of 22, he broke through the gold grade again and became a Yu Xian warrior. Looking at his current cultivation, he is indeed at the peak of the Yu Xian realm. Among the younger generation, he was already recognized as the #1 genius. Very few people could compare to him in terms of aptitude. Of course, you're not included in this limit. You're only at the Yu Xian realm, yet you're able to fight with a powerhouse like Shen Xian and even win one move. You're a real demon. Such an outstanding talent, even if he isn't a legitimate son, he shouldn't be treated like this, right? Even though he wasn't a legitimate son, he still had the bloodline of the Bailey family. Even though he couldn't be the successor of the Bailey family, he was still a rare expert of the younger generation of the Bailey family. Based on his age and his current progress, it wasn't hard to imagine that within 10 years, he would certainly be able to reach the level of Tian Xian. He might even be able to reach the level of Shen Xian within 30 years. Could it be that such a character had to give up on such a rare genius just because he wasn't a legitimate son? Aren't the Bailey family's actions a little too unwise? June Moxie was flabbergasted as he heard this. This matter was simply incomprehensible to him. In fact, it was hard for him to even imagine it. One must know that such an outstanding, young, and limitless cultivation genius was a rarity even in the Silver Blizzard City or the Shuehan Manor. In fact, it was hard to find even a handful of such geniuses in the entire Xian continent. It was believed that any family that possessed such a genius would treat him like a precious jewel and treasure him. Not to mention anything else, but one could imagine how much the 3 Dongfang masters cherished Jun Dashao. That's not the only reason. The main reason was because of his father. His father was the eldest son of his grandfather, who had raped a maidservant when he was drunk. However, the Bailey family had never acknowledged their status. So, they had been oppressed by the family. His bloodline had become even more estranged. The more talented he was, and the faster his cultivation progress was. But, the more miserable he had been oppressed. His father and his father had an awkward status in the Bailey family. In fact, they were equivalent to servants in the Bailey family. In fact, they weren't even as favored as maids. Therefore, his desire for vengeance was exceptionally strong. Especially after his Xian Qi had advanced to the Jade Xian realm. Then, he did something by chance. There was a look of pity on Dongfang Wenqing's face. In fact, he hadn't taken the initiative to do this. The process was very simple. He had gone to his house to cause trouble for the Bailey family. He had taught a fierce lesson to the Bailey family. Moreover, he had been particularly ruthless. This had aroused the Bailey family's anger. His Xian Qi cultivation had been much faster and more outstanding than those direct descendants who had relied on external forces to advance. Moreover, their meridians had been sorted out since childhood. However, he had lost his status in the Bailey family. The reason why the Bailey family didn't kill him on the spot was because they cared about their kinship. However, now that he's here, it's obvious that some people in the Bailey family don't intend to let him off. This trip to the Southern Heaven region was undoubtedly a good opportunity to kill him with a borrowed knife. So, that's how it is. Jun Moxie heaved a long sigh of relief. He murmured, Bailey. Luo Yun. His eyes flickered. It was hard to tell what he was thinking. But, we think that the Bailey family is destroying themselves by doing this. It's just as you've judged, Moxie. This kid's natural talent is outstanding, and he's only slightly inferior to you at most. I believe that as long as he has 30 to 50 years of time, I'm afraid another supreme-level expert will be born. You must know that the emergence of a great master-level powerhouse in an aristocratic family, especially one that belongs to the Jianghu. Then, they'll be able to break away from their original scope in one fell swoop, and become one of the super forces. This is tantamount to a qualitative leap. The Shuaihun Manor and the Silver Blizzard City are examples of this. This kind of opportunity would only appear once every several hundred years or even a dozen generations for any aristocratic family. However, the Bailey family had let go of such an opportunity. I felt that it was a pity. But, I was even more puzzled. I didn't know whether the Bailey family was too short-sighted, or if they were afraid that Bailey Luo Yun would take revenge. Or is there another reason behind this? Dongfang Wenqing shook her head. She chuckled and said, however, it's a pity. After all, it doesn't have much to do with us. In fact, it's a good thing for our aristocratic families to eliminate such a potential future expert. So, everyone would be happy to see this happen. After all, the rise of every hero is bound to trample on the corpses of countless enemies. And, the hands of every powerhouse are bound to be stained with blood. But, we're all part of the 9 great families. So, even if we're not mortal enemies, we're still potential competitors. The people of the aristocratic families had already come down from the high ground. Their leaders were walking towards the meeting hall. Dongfang Wenqing looked at them from afar and said, I'll accompany your third uncle inside. Otherwise, those dregs of the Silver Blizzard City will continue to mock and ridicule us. But, they won't dare to be too presumptuous in my presence. She smiled faintly and walked away. After a while, she pushed Jun Wui's wheelchair inside. Jun Moxie looked at the third uncle sitting in the wheelchair, and suddenly thought, third uncle's legs have been healed. But, I don't know when he'll be able to stand up from the wheelchair. When will the Blood General be able to stand proudly in front of the people of the world, and show off his proud demeanor? All of this depends on strength, absolute strength. Strength is equivalent to talent. Jun Moxie suddenly strode towards Bailey Luo Yun as this thought crossed his mind. The people of the Bailey family had already returned by this time. The 3 of them returned to their tent while chatting and laughing. They didn't even look at Bailey Luo Yun, who was standing at the entrance. Bailey Xiong Feng was the leader of the group. He looked straight ahead, and entered the meeting hall with an indifferent expression on his face. Bailey Luo Yun's indifferent eyes gazed at the hustle and bustle in the sky. He smiled bitterly in his heart. He thought, I don't know how many days I'll be able to watch such a chaotic scene. Will being torn apart by 10,000 beasts be my only ending? Bailey Luo Yun's heart was clear as to why his family had sent him out for this matter. If Luo Yun doesn't die, the Bailey family won't be able to rest in peace. This was the evaluation that Master Dashao's father had given him. He was the current master of the Bailey family. And, he had been living under this huge shadow ever since he had broken through to the 9th grade at the age of 10. Sometimes, he felt that it was ironic when he thought about it. In other clans, as long as a child had a little bit of talent, he or she would receive the full support of the clan. And, everyone could see his or her talent. So, why was he treated like this in the Bailey family? That man was afraid that I would run away. So, he didn't hesitate to use my father's life to threaten me to come to the Southern Heaven City to participate in the war. Why did he do this? My father would evade my questions every time I asked him. He wanted to say something, but then hesitated. The most valuable sentence he had ever said was, Alas, Luo Yun, your desire for revenge is too strong. There are some things that you know now. But, it's not a good thing, desire for revenge. I don't want to stir up trouble. Would I have disregarded the consequences if I hadn't been forced to the point where I couldn't bear it? Everything that had happened that day was right in front of my eyes. How could a man not resist in the face of such a thing? Could it be that, there's some inside story that I don't know about? I'll get to the bottom of this mystery if I'm lucky enough to survive this time. Bailey Luo Yun's expression was indifferent. He turned around, and was about to enter the tent. It's true that they don't care about me. But, I don't see them as a family either. The sooner I die, the better it would be for them. But, isn't it the same for me? Suddenly, he saw a youngster walking towards him. He didn't recognize this youngster, but he knew that his name was Jun Moxie. He had heard that this youngster was a debauchee and a prodigal second generation. He was very similar to some people in his family. He didn't need to take a second look to know that this Jun Moxie had come to look for him. That was because the direction in which Jun Moxie was walking was very clear. Not to mention, the two eyes on his face were staring at him with a strange expression. Bailey Luo Yun. Jun Moxie tilted his head, and looked him up and down. Jun Moxie. The Jun family's third young master. Bailey Luo Yun's face was as indifferent as ever. He looked at this youngster who had suddenly come to look for him. He didn't seem surprised or happy at all. He didn't even try to guess why this youngster had come to look for him. Find a place to talk. Come with me, Jun Moxie invited him. He had asked for his opinion, but his tone had been firm. In fact, he had even added a commanding tone. He had been a proud and aloof assassin in his previous life. His personality had changed a lot in this life. But, he knew how to deal with such a proud and aloof person. One should never hope that the opposite party would take the initiative when dealing with such a person. Even if their heart desired it to the extreme, it would still be difficult for them to open their golden mouths. After all, the hitman Jun himself was such a person. Only by taking control of everything in one's own hands and grasping the absolute initiative, then the other party would unconsciously act according to one's arrangements. Even if the opposite party was disgusted in their heart, they would still follow your rhythm because they were unwilling to accept it. Jun Moxie wanted to even out his disadvantage, and seek the right to talk on equal terms. At the very least, it would be an opportunity to talk on equal terms. I'm not familiar with you, so I don't want to talk. Bailey Luo Yun indifferently turned his head, and was about to enter the tent. Even he was disgusted by the tent. I've heard that you're one of the few Xian Qi geniuses in the world. Don't tell me you don't dare. June Moxie took a step forward. Bailey Luo Yun's tall and straight figure suddenly stopped. I've heard that you're only 26. You're at the peak of Yu Xian's realm. But, you don't dare to talk to me? Are you afraid that I'll plot against you? June Moxie smiled mischievously. Bailey Luo Yun suddenly turned around. His face was still expressionless, and his eyes were calm as he calmly looked at June Moxie. So, the rumors were wrong. It's no wonder. 9 out of 10 rumors can't be trusted. June Moxie turned around and walked away. He left behind a few words, I shouldn't have come with such courage. June Moxie didn't walk back to his tent. Instead, he walked towards the periphery. The sound of footsteps could be heard behind him. Bailey Luo Yun was quietly following him. A trace of pride flashed in June Moxie's eyes. If he said, "Can you talk to me?" Why can't we talk? Bailey Luo Yun would have gone back to his tent and taken a nap if he had asked that question. But, he wouldn't have followed me like this. June Dashao didn't turn around. Instead, he walked faster and faster. The speed of his agility was shocking. Bailey Luo Yun didn't seem to have any intention to speak either. He still followed June Dashao at a close distance. He didn't fall behind much. 2 youngsters who had reached the same realm of Yu Xian's were chasing after each other. Everyone's attention was focused on the meeting hall. So, no one had noticed these 2 outstanding youngsters. June Moxie gradually increased his speed. He was getting faster and faster. In fact, it seemed as if he had left the ground and was flying. The distance between them was getting bigger and bigger. Bailey Luo Yun's indifferent eyes revealed astonishment and shock. I can't believe that this notorious Lord Dashao is faster than me. He didn't want to admit defeat. But, he couldn't catch up with him no matter how hard he tried. Moreover, he couldn't shorten the distance even by a little bit. Instead, the distance between them was getting bigger and bigger. I've already lost this competition of speed. Bailey Luo Yun didn't want to admit it. But, he clearly knew that this youngster was much faster than him even though he was younger than him. At least, he was faster than him in terms of speed. June Moxie took the lead and walked up to a small hidden slope more than 5 kilometers away from the city. He sat down without a care for his image. Then, he patted the grass next to him and said, "Sit down." Nobody responded. Bailey Luo Yun was still standing as straight as a javelin. He was used to being nervous for a long time. So, he wouldn't allow himself to relax even for a moment. That was because all the so-called cousins of the same generation couldn't wait to put him to death. He had long been used to being nervous like this. However, there was a trace of admiration in the depths of his eyes. "What's your purpose?" Bailey Luo Yun asked. He was a man of few words. June Mo Xia wasn't used to speaking at length. Therefore, he kept everything in his heart. The fact that he was willing to take the initiative to ask this question was already because of June Mo Xia's outstanding skills. June Mo Xia was younger than him, but his cultivation wasn't inferior to his. "You've come to throw away your life." June Moxie didn't turn his head around. June Moxie hadn't turned his head around since they had left the field. It seemed as if he was very sure that Bailey Luo Yun would follow him. Moreover, Bailey Luo Yun couldn't surpass him. However, this was what made Bailey Luo Yun feel the most uncomfortable. "What does it have to do with you?" Bailey Luo Yun was as indifferent as before. "Indeed, it has nothing to do with me. After all, your stink won't reach my family's land if you die." June Moxie smiled, "But, I'm curious. Why did you come even though you knew that you've come to throw away your life?" "This has nothing to do with you." Bailey Luo Yun was somewhat angry. What is this lad talking about? What is he trying to say? Someone is threatening you, right? June Moxie muttered, "Moreover, the person who threatened you is the person you care about the most? Well, that must be the case. Otherwise, you wouldn't have come even though you knew that you were doomed. You don't look like a fool. Bailey Luoyun finally became silent. His opponent's guess isn't wrong. Moreover, he has accurately grasped my weakness. I haven't said anything, but he has seen through me. It's rare to see someone so young. You want to be the master of the Bailey clan. Is that right? Jun Moxie held a half-withered stalk of grass in his mouth. He seemed to be talking to Bai Yun. You're very calm, cold, and cruel. You dare to do what you do. And you dare to take responsibility for what you've done. You're very vengeful, and your desire for power is enormous. You want to take revenge, but you don't have enough power. You don't have a future in the Bailey clan. But, you yearn for the greatest power in the clan. That's the only way you can take revenge. What does this have to do with you? You're talking to me like this. It's ridiculous. Bailey Luoyun's words were very impolite. Moreover, his tone was very annoying. However, Jun Moxie knew that he had hit the nail on the head. He had spoken from the depths of this indifferent youth's heart. Otherwise, he wouldn't have spoken so much with such an eccentric personality. Indeed, this has nothing to do with me. But, you'll never be able to fulfill your wish if you continue to stay in the Bailey clan. Jun Moxie stood up. Then, he suddenly turned around, and looked straight into Bailey Luoyun's eyes. Then, he spoke word by word, follow me, and I can fulfill your wish. You? Bailey Luoyun sized him up with a lenglang look, why should I? The Jun family's fortunes aren't necessarily better. The Bailey family is one of the 9 great families. So, I know about the Jun family's affairs. Even now, the Bailey family can't be compared to the Jun family. You're wrong. The Jun family's fate has nothing to do with you. You only need to tell me what I can do for you to follow me. Jun Moxie smiled, tell me your conditions. You should know that you don't have the slightest hope in the Bailey family. In fact, you'll die 10 times out of 10 in this journey. Believe in me, and you'll have the opportunity to escape from death. You'll have no choice but to accept it even if I'm lying to you. Because, I'm afraid that you'll die in this Tian Fa forest in a few days if you don't grab onto this life-saving straw. And, even your bones will become a meal for the Xian beasts. Bailey Luoyun calmly looked at him. Jun Moxie smiled back at him. A good while passed. Then, Bailey Luoyun suddenly tilted his head and spoke in a soft voice, so what if I die? Life and death are nothing to me. Living in this world isn't much fun. Death may be a release for me. At least, it's a good release for me. Release? But, I'm different from you. In fact, I'll choose to die after I've taken my revenge. Jun Moxie calmly replied. Revenge. Bailey Luoyun's eyes flashed. It seemed as if Jun Moxie had spoken his mind. So, he suddenly turned his back to Jun Moxie, and spoke word by word, I have 2 conditions. I'll follow you after Tian Fa ends if you fulfill them. First, defeat me. Defeat me with your own strength. I know that you're very strong. But, I need to confirm that only the number 1 person of the younger generation is worthy of my following. Second, the Bailey family has sent 5 people to the southern heaven city. Tian Xian and the other 2. Count me in. I want the other 4 to die. I'll follow you for 10 years if you can fulfill these 2 conditions. I'll still leave if you can't fulfill my wish within 10 years. On the other hand, not only will my life be yours if you fulfill them, but the entire Bailey family will also be yours. These were Bailey Luoyun's conditions. Jun Moxie watched Bailey Luoyun walk away with a straight back. The corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. This lad didn't turn his head even once until his silhouette disappeared from my sight. These conditions aren't a problem for me. This young master can deal with you right now. As for those small fries of the Bailey family, it won't be difficult for me to send them back home. Why can't you give me a challenging condition? Lad, just wait for me to train you. Jun Moxie secretly returned to the campsite using his swift agility technique. He saw that the 20,000-strong army had already set up their tents in an orderly manner. The tents were placed against the city walls even though they were in the city. They were guarded by barricades, traps, and archers lying in ambush. The front of the camp was even more heavily guarded. The patrolling soldiers had their own duties. Two groups of soldiers crossed each other at the border of different camps at every moment. The warning gongs were divided into 4 groups. 2 groups would take turns. One group would be in the light, and the other would be in the dark. They were ready at any time. The security of the army had reached such an extent. It could be said that such an army would never have to worry about a sneak attack under any circumstances. Moreover, it could ensure that the soldiers who were resting in shifts would get the best sleep. It was a pity that there was no place for these ordinary soldiers to use their skills in the Xian Beast Tide. Jun Moxie was even more certain of one thing when he saw the densely packed Xian Beast Tide. These 20,000-strong army, along with the commanding officers and the disciples of the aristocratic families, have come to throw away their lives. They are all cannon fodder. Jun Moxie sighed softly. He then walked towards his own camp. He had just walked through the gate when he felt that the atmosphere was unusual. Guan Qing Han was trying to comfort Dugu Xiaoyi. Dugu Xiaoyi's face was stained with tears. It seemed as if she had been greatly wronged. What's wrong? Boo-hoo. Brother Mo Xie. Little White. Little White is gone. Dugu Xiaoyi threw herself at him and burst into tears when she saw him return. Hey, I thought it was something serious. It's gone if it's gone. Jun Moxie smiled bitterly in his heart. Bringing Little White here is akin to releasing a tiger back into the mountains. Chapter 333. Today's first update. Yes. Long Crane was the first to give an affirmative answer. Then, he continued, I'm very sure of this. He had used his chi to test it out on me and the 4th brother at that time. Indeed, the chi in our bodies had become 10 times more active after he had used his special method. Even the bottleneck that had been holding us back for a long time had loosened up. Therefore, I can guarantee that there's no doubt about this matter. Long Crane spoke in a serious manner. So, there's really such a thing, the black-cloaked man muttered. His voice was somewhat indistinct. There's nothing wrong with it if that's the case. But, why didn't you and the 4th brother try to capture him? You could have gotten rid of him once and for all if you could have controlled him. That man's strength couldn't compare to Li Ju Tian's, right? How could there be such a super expert in the secular world? You and the 4th brother wouldn't have been any weaker than Li Ju Tian if you had attacked him in your original form. At the very least, you should have tried to probe him. Long Crane smiled bitterly. Do you think we didn't want to, eldest brother? That's why we proposed this competition. But you don't know how much pressure that person gave us at that time. Just based on his aura alone, to put it bluntly, he gave us a much more oppressive feeling than boss. Moreover, he had the means to help us increase our cultivation. So, his strength couldn't have been worse. We would have had to bid farewell to this matter of advancing if we hadn't been able to defeat him in one strike. After 3 rounds of competition, Old Bear and I willingly admit defeat. We weren't a match for him. It's not like you don't know how tempting this matter was for us. The 4th brother and I have been trapped here for nearly 40 years. We haven't seen the 2nd brother for many years. But, he may not be able to advance either. Moreover, that man's conditions were very simple. He only wanted to stop the Shui Han manor from moving north. Moreover, he wanted Li Ju Tian's son to be bedridden for a month or two. It wasn't a difficult task. So, the fourth brother and I agreed without much discussion. Indeed, it wasn't a difficult task. In fact, we were the ones who had the advantage. But, how did things end up like this? Half of the world's profound practitioners have actually gathered at our doorstep. The black-robed man leaned slightly to the side. In fact, my original intention was to take advantage of the night to set the Shui Han Manor on fire. Then, I would personally take advantage of the chaos, and beat up Li Ju Tian's son. Then, no one would be able to find out about it. But, Big Bear, he brazenly jumped into the Shui Han Manor in broad daylight, and shouted that he would break Li Tingyun's legs. Then, he arrogantly asked the other party to take the initiative to bring Li Tingyun out so that he could break his legs. Let alone Li Ju Tian, even I wouldn't have agreed. Long Crane fiercely complained to Big Bear. Third brother. Fuck you, Crane Third. You sold me out just like that. Don't I want to get it over with as soon as possible? What a waste of time you propose. Besides, sneaking around like that isn't satisfying at all. What if they insist that it has nothing to do with us after we're done? Bear Mountain shouted with a flushed face and neck. He hadn't even finished speaking when he felt a chill run down his spine. So, he didn't dare to speak again. Who would have thought that the Shui Han Manor wouldn't listen to Big Bear's words? So, we started fighting on the same day. We had the upper hand, and even injured some of their men. But, Li Tingyun didn't come face to face with us. However, the Master of Life and Death, Shi Changshao, suddenly appeared at the Shui Han Manor the next day. So, it became very difficult for us to take advantage of the situation. So, we continued fighting for several days. But, it wasn't a big deal at first. Li Tingyun wasn't there, but the Shui Han Manor was basically destroyed. But, that old dog Li Ju Tian unexpectedly returned at this critical juncture. Long Crane's lips twitched, and he didn't say anything else. But, his eyes evaded, and his face revealed an indignant expression. You went to their door to cause trouble, and even asked them to hand over their young lord so that you could break his legs. And, you still blame them for not cooperating? You're still angry. According to your logic, Li Ju Tian would have died of anger. The Shui Han Manor is a huge place. And, it's gone just like that. Which force would be willing to endure such humiliation? The black-cloaked man sneered, do you two really think that there's no one else in this world? That's ridiculous. You acted in the dark, but you acted so brazenly. Bear Mountain, it's said that you have the heart of a bear and the guts of a leopard. But, I'd like to see how big a bear's guts are. I'd like to see if it's bigger than a leopard's. Bear Mountain was tongue-tied. He stammered twice, and then closed his mouth. What happened after that? The black-cloaked man asked. After that, we started to fight. Then, I suddenly discovered that Li Ju Tian's body was emitting a Xian Dan's aura. It seemed that he had swallowed some kind of Xian Dan. Moreover, it was at least level 9. It was similar to the aura of the Panther King. But, it hadn't started to circulate. So, I became suspicious. Long Crane's face became angry as he continued, the Panther King had mysteriously disappeared 2 years ago. Old Bear and I had been investigating for a long time. But, we hadn't been able to find any news. Then, we heard that a peak level 9 Xian Dan had appeared in the Tianxiang city. So, we went there with that in mind. But, we didn't expect that it wasn't the case. But, we went to the Shui Han Manor in accordance with the bet made by that mysterious expert. But, we found the Panther King's Xian Dan's aura on Li Ju Tian's body. The Panther King, the black-cloaked man's voice tightened, the real Panther King? What's going on? Tell me everything you know. His tone had become very cold, I was wondering why I hadn't seen the shadow of the Panther King this time. But, it turned out that it had been killed and eaten. Even the Xian Dan had become a part of someone else's body. Good. Good. Third brother, fourth brother, the two of you have managed Tian Fa very well during my closed-door training. Even the Panther King has disappeared. And, you're telling me that it has mysteriously disappeared? Very good. Long Crane and Bear Mountain's complexions changed. They knelt down with a thud. Their foreheads were sweating profusely. The two of them could hear it, and they also understood that as long as their boss spoke with this kind of intermittent tone, it meant that he was extremely furious. It seemed that the two brothers were in deep trouble this time. The Tian Fa forest had 10 beast kings when the king was still alive. Even the 3 holy lands didn't dare to look them in the eye. Moreover, it was known as the most dangerous place in the universe. What kind of glory was that? Ever since the king's immortalization, the 9 beast kings were all disheartened and went into seclusion. That's how we rose to prominence. In just a few hundred years, there were 12 new beast kings. I thought that even if we couldn't continue the glory of the past, we could at least maintain the prestige of Tian Fa. But, who would have thought that in just a few decades, the second brother, the Eagle King, would be cheated away by Yun Bichen in a bet. He actually became that old man's mount. He has become a disgrace to Tian Fa. The sixth brother, the Lion King, and the seventh brother, the Monkey King, were beaten back to their original forms by the 8 great masters 60 years ago. They haven't been able to recover in the past 60 years. His voice was desolate. Behind Big Bear, the White Jade Lion Beast King and the Golden-Furred Monkey Beast King lowered their heads sadly. The 2 Beast Kings that had been beaten back to their original forms were the 2 of them. The 5th brother left Tian Fa 30 years ago. But, he was suddenly besieged by 9 mysterious Xinxian experts, and died a violent death. Even the Xian Dan's whereabouts are unknown. Now, the 11th brother, the Leopard King, is dead. Even the Xian Dan is in Li Ju Tian's stomach. Of the 12 Beast Kings, only the few of us are left. The Crane King, the Bear King, the Snake King, the Tiger King, and the Eagle King. The aura of the black-robed man was getting more and more repressed. He was getting more and more furious. He suddenly shouted, "Is this still Tian Fa? Is it worthy of being called Tian Fa's most dangerous place?" You 7 beast kings and millions of brothers attacked together, but you couldn't even take down the Shuehan Manor? Huh? The aura of his entire body exploded like a bomb in the Tian Fa forest. The fierce aura dispersed in all directions. The 7 beast kings didn't resist. They didn't dare to resist. So, they were sent flying by this enormous aura. All the trees within a 300-meter radius were snapped in half. Then, they were turned into sawdust in midair. A large piece of land had appeared on the ground. Not even a blade of grass had grown. The might of Tian Fa's strongest beast king had reached such a level. Big brother, please calm down. This is a critical moment for you. You mustn't be so angry. The 7 beast kings knelt on the ground, and pleaded bitterly. The black-robed man was hidden in his black robe. But, he looked up at the sky, and sighed. Snake King, Tiger King, Eagle King. You 3 are already at the peak level, right? The black-robed man exhaled. He seemed to have calmed down as he calmly asked. A golden-robed man, a black-robed man, and a green-robed girl bowed and replied, yes. Apart from Long Crane and Big Bear, these 3 were the only ones who were still in their human form. The White Lion Beast King and the golden-haired Monkey Beast King revealed a look of admiration and indignation in their eyes. The 2 of them had reached this level 60 years ago. But, they had been beaten back to their original forms. So, they hadn't been able to reach their original level no matter how hard they'd cultivated for the last 60 years. It's time for a breakthrough. But, Where can we find so many Tian-Fa's sacred fruits? The black-robed man sighed. Everyone remained silent. And, the forest suddenly became quiet. There's no turning back since we've started this war. So, we'll make the situation as big as possible. I want to re-establish the reputation of the Tian-Fa forest as the most dangerous place in the universe after this war. We may not be able to make the three holy lands recognize us. But, we can't let Li Ju Tian and Yun Bichen enter Tian-Fa as they please. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.